I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. The Manhattan grand jury has voted to criminally indict Donald Trump. This is the first time in American history where a president, a former president, a disgraced, traitorous, fascist wannabe former president has been criminally indicted. This process we have been covering here at the MeidasTouch Network for some time. We've been keeping you updated. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office itself has not made any official statements. There are multiple reports, though, of sources with very, very, very close contacts with the grand jury, sufficient for us to confirm here on the MeidasTouch Network that the grand jury did indeed take a vote to indict Donald Trump, that Donald Trump has indeed been criminally indicted. We expect the Manhattan District Attorney to make an announcement at some point in the next few days about the criminal indictment. And so the process that we will be waiting for, and we will be speaking with experts here over the course of this coverage today, is for Donald Trump ultimately to surrender himself, for him to be booked, for him to have his mugshot taken, and for the normal processes that take place in a criminal indictment to take place here. Now, we've been covering over the past few weeks, as we have been on Indictment Watch, the vicious and vile threats that Donald Trump has made to the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. The wheels of justice have not been deterred by these threats. The wheels of justice continued. We reported earlier in the week that David Pecker testified on Monday again before the Manhattan grand jury. He is the former chairman and CEO of the National Enquirer, who participated in the catch and kill schemes whereby Donald Trump would use the Enquirer to try to locate individuals who were either the victims of Donald Trump or who were the subject of Donald Trump's despicable sexual advances, and they would catch the stories. They would try to write stories. They would then try to kill the stories so that people cannot talk about the stories. And so Pecker testified again on Monday, and we had been talking about here at the MeidasTouch Network that this was particularly a Monday and Wednesday afternoon grand jury. It didn't mean, given the unprecedented nature, however, that a vote couldn't have been taken at another time. But we are now learning March 30th, 2023. Mark that on your calendar, because this is a historic day. This is an important day for the health of our democracy, for the health of our justice system. And I'll say this about the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg, who, by the way, was on the MeidasTouch Network. Karen Friedman Agnifilo, the former number two who had worked at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office in the capacity as the former number two there for 30 years, interviewed the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. And I remember seeing some of the comments that were being directed at Alvin Bragg, and it made me quite upset. And also understanding, though, where the comments were coming from when there was kind of hate and disinformation that was out there. You know, the large media networks and of course the right-wing disinformation echo chambers out there were frankly spreading lies this entire time about the process that was taking place, about the steps that were being taken by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And our approach here at the MeidasTouch Network was to not follow just these narratives out there. And the prevailing narrative, right? You remember it Alvin Bragg is weak. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office is incredibly weak. They're in Trump's pocket, this, that, and the other. And what we would say here is, look, we certainly understand that this has taken far more time than any of us would want. Any day that Donald Trump is not brought to justice is a dark day for our justice system. To have someone like him that so despicably mocks our incredible legal system here at the MeidasTouch Network. And I'm so honored to have Karen Friedman Agnifilo here, someone who was here at the very beginning. Of course, we have my brothers here as well, but we will be having Karen Friedman Agnifilo on very, very, very soon to share with you her insights, because we've had her on. I, of course, host the show Political Beatdown with Michael Cohen. So I'll just say this about the MeidasTouch Network. We have Michael Cohen, who's obviously a critical witness in the underlying criminal investigation, who could provide enough information that he's allowed to talk about. But of course, there were areas that he couldn't go into. And we had Karen Friedman Agnifilo, the person who was actually the former acting Manhattan District Attorney for many, many times in her tenure, who was the number 2 of the entire office, share with you that wisdom. And so I do hope that all of you appreciated our approach here. And of course, the great wisdom of people like Michael Popak from Legal AF, and from our whole cast of contributors here. But I hope you thought and now find that our data-based approach, because we said Manhattan District Attorney's Office will be the first to criminally indict by following the data. The same way we've said the red wave narrative was complete BS. Follow the data, follow the truth, and make sure that ultimately we always, always support our democracy. Brett and Jordy, great to have you here on this special edition of the MeidasTouch podcast. Of course, we normally go live at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, but I'm not going to miss this. Not going to miss this one.
Mm-mm.
And I do want to say hello to the Meidas Mighty. What a historic day that this is. But we also have an incredibly special guest who I do want to bring on the program. As Ben mentioned, we have Karen Friedman Agnifilo, who is the former Chief Assistant District Attorney at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Karen has been on top of the coverage this entire time, providing you with insights that only she can. And I am so, so thankful that she has lent her incredible voice to this network so that all of our viewers, all of our listeners can get the facts straight from the source. Karen, how you doing? Where are you?
Hi,
Karen
I don't know
is
if
in
you
the
guys
car.
can hear me. Can you hear me?
We could hear you. The service is a little wonky.
Can you guys hear me?
But Karen, right now, yes, it looks like your service is a little wonky right now. Can you hear us?
Yeah, it is. I'm in a car, and I apologize, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity. It's amazing. I'm wearing orange for the occasion, because he's going to be at least, for the orange jumpsuit, for the future orange jumpsuit that he's going to be wearing, or his skin. I can't tell which one, why I'm wearing orange. But no, this is a really big deal that's happening right now. It's what we talked about on Midweek Legal AF last night. We said that there was a possibility still that the grand jury, everyone was saying, no, it's going to be a hiatus. And we said, but there's still 2 days before they start to go out. There was today and Monday, and people were saying, oh, you keep predicting, you keep saying this, and we're tired of hearing it. Well, here we are, and he has been indicted. And I guess once they negotiate a surrender, we will hear much more from him, and we will hear from him what he has to say. We're not going to hear a lot from Alvin Bragg because it is secret, and the grand jury by law is secret. And also by law, the fact that there is an indictment is sealed until he is arraigned in front of a court. But we all know that he is somebody who likes to tell people stuff that may or may not be true, but it's looking like he has been indicted by the grand jury. That means 23 people who heard all of the evidence in this case, including evidence that he asked to be put on by Robert Costello to refute Michael Cohen and his longtime ally David Pecker from American Media Inc. He has absolutely been they've all been absolutely vindicated, and it means that the grand jury felt that they were believable, that there was sufficient evidence that to prove that he committed a crime, that he not only falsified business records in the hush money payments when he tried to influence the election by paying both Stormy Daniels, and now we're hearing Karen McDougal. That has been part of the grand jury presentation, that these were all efforts on his part to influence the election improperly and illegally. And so there's been lots of commentary about how this isn't a strong case, about how there's not enough evidence, etc. But what this tells me is that 23 normal people who are selected at random, you don't get to voir dire them, you don't get to ask them questions, you don't get to pick and choose and try to spin. It's the 23 people who are available and chosen at random, decided that there is enough evidence to charge, for the first time in American history, Donald Trump with a crime. So this is a historic day, and when we see the indictment, or we know exactly what the charges are, we'll be able to talk much more about it. But in the meantime, he's been indicted. As I said, it's sealed, and we might not know the details until he surrenders and he is arraigned.
And Karen, because it's sealed, and first off, thank you for allowing us to be in the car with you, and we get to speak with you first before you do the rounds that you're about to do.
Yeah, I'm on my way to CNN. They're going to do my hair and makeup, so I'll look much better than I look right now.
You look absolutely
more people are watching on here anyway, Karen.
More people are watching
honestly, here. I don't even care. I don't know why they do it, but anyway, go on.
So very quickly, though, knowing that it's sealed, does Trump get to see this indictment that it's sealed? Does he know what's in it as of this point? When does he learn what's in it, and when does it get unsealed?
So it actually gets unsealed when he is in court. So he will be told what the charges are when he surrenders and he is arrested. He will be told what the charges are, and the rest processing will happen. He'll be fingerprinted. He'll be photographed. Those fingerprints get sent up to Albany, New York, which is where the headquarters are, where they keep all the repository for rap sheets and criminal records. So he will have a rap sheet like everybody else. He will have a NYSID number. That's a New York State ID number that every person charged with a crime in New York gets. And he may even be handcuffed. Who knows? And he might even be read his Miranda warnings. We just don't know, but he will be processed and arrested like anybody else. And he'll be brought before the court. And that's where he will actually get to know exactly what the charges are, because he will be arraigned on them.
So if he puts out any disinformation about the charges or this or that now, everybody should know that he doesn't even know the charges. He will find out when he surrenders, when he gets arrested. And right now, the district attorney's office is likely negotiating that with Trump. Is that what you think is going on?
Absolutely. With Trump, with law enforcement. I mean, the way I think everybody found out about this is there were reports that law enforcement was beefing up security. And so that tells me that they had to be told because of security reasons, because as soon as you start to make arrangements, remember, this is what we've been saying all along, is that we think that the reason this is happening this way and it's delayed is because of the security concerns that he's going to pose. So one of the first things they are going to do, in addition to telling Donald Trump, because they need to negotiate a surrender, is to tell law enforcement, so law enforcement can make arrangements to keep everybody safe, keep him safe, because he drums up so much trouble. I think it was this morning or yesterday, I can't remember now. He did an all caps message to the grand jury in a last ditch effort to try and convince them, after he bullied them and called everybody names and threatened everybody and put a baseball bat by Alvin Bragg's head and called for death and destruction. I think he realized, oh no, there's 23 people who have my fate in their hands. And so he puts up that that Truth Social post that you just said to try and I guess convince them not to do what they just did. So.
And before you go on CNN and these other networks, any final words to the Midas Mighty? Look, they've got to know you through the Legal AF podcast that you co-host with myself and Michael Popak, and you've been following the data. You had Alvin Bragg on a one-on-one interview a few months back, and you've been keeping everybody informed before the CNNs and the MSNBCs and everybody else has been now finally saying, oh, she probably knows something. It was obvious that you did. You led the office. You've had one of the most accomplished legal careers of anybody out there. We so admire everything that you do here, and it's been incredible for the Midas Mighty to get to know you. So before you head out, any kind of final words to the Midas Mighty about the historical significance of this day and perhaps what they should be looking out for in the days to come?
Yeah, so thank you for those extremely kind words, and I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the patience, everybody's had. People were frustrated. They thought that my interview with Alvin Bragg, a lot of the comments were, you're throwing him softballs. Why aren't you asking him harder questions? And that's because I trust the Manhattan DA's office. I worked there. I know the people who work there, and they have integrity. And if they say that a case is open and that we are doing an investigation and we are working on it, I actually, I don't trust blindly everybody got off. I appreciate the patience everyone has about that, about the fact that we were saying, even though everyone's saying, oh, it's a hiatus, and we said, well, we think it could be Thursday or Monday, and everyone said, stop saying that. We're sick of hearing it, and I get it. I was sick of saying it. I really was. I was starting to question my own self and be like, oh God, I better stop saying it. But you know what? Here we are, and it's a momentous day. It's an important day. And, honestly, the Midas Mighty are, first and foremost, the people who are they're the wind beneath our wings. They're what keep us going. And I love when Popak screenshots all the nice comments and sends it to us, because honestly, for we all work hard. You guys work really hard, but we all put a lot of time into all this. And, sometimes, we do it because it's like a passion project. We do it because it's a public service. You guys started this movement. The fact that you reached over 1 million followers is just unbelievable. The three brothers, like sitting in a garage somewhere, decided to, create this thing that is now, it's a movement, and the fact that we've been able to get them on these, these networks. I've been talking about the MeidasTouch network and has been talking about Legal AF, like, it's amazing. It's legitimate. And you know what happened today, and the fact that he's been indicted, it means that all of the, the Midas Mighty and all the people who have seen the truth and have been waiting for this, the day is here, right? It's finally here. And sometimes, you can't just say, for example, the Presidential Records Act says that I can keep my records when it says the opposite, right? You can't say I'm innocent when I'm guilty. So, right, it's kind of gaslighting, and it starts to make you question yourself. And I think this is just really validating for all of us that it's actually finally here. So I have to go, but thank you for having me.
Karen Friedman Agnifilo, thank you so much for your time. It was great to have you. Karen, pull up that post that Donald Trump made on his social media platform as we bring on Michael Popak, host of Legal AF. And let me read for you what Donald Trump posted just the other day. He goes, I have gained such respect for this grand jury and perhaps even the grand jury system as a whole. The evidence is so overwhelming in my favor and so ridiculously bad for the highly partisan and hateful district attorney that the grand jury is saying, hold on, we are not a rubber stamp, which most grand juries are branded as being. We are not going to vote against a preponderance of evidence or against large numbers of legal scholars, all saying there is no case here. Drop this 6 witch hunt now. And I say when you read this, it reads like an abuser. Like that's an abuser's mindset, right?
You're right.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to specify also, like, I want everybody to look at that as an example of the gaslighting in general that we see from Trump and that we see from MAGA world. They try to flood the airwaves, or in this case, the metaphorical airwaves, with BS, with just flat out lies. And they do it because a guy like Donald Trump believes that he can bend reality to his will.
Mhm.
And it's incredibly effective oftentimes. And he gets you nervous, right? I'm sure a lot of people read his things. I saw articles written on legitimate publications saying, oh, well, Donald Trump is saying that they disbanded the grand jury and they're not going to vote in an indictment. You cannot take this guy's word for everything. And extending off that, you cannot take the word of those trying to defend him for anything. All of these Republicans with these weaponization committees, the Jim Jordans, the Kevin McCarthys, they are all in on the same kind of gaslighting method. And, you know, I know a lot of pundits and stuff will probably come on TV over the next 24 hours and they'll say something like, you know, folks, this is a sad day for the United States of America. A sitting president was indicted. I'm not going to say that. And we're not going to say that here at the MeidasTouch Network. On the contrary, I think this is a day of celebration. This is a joyous day for the United States of America. Finally, we are seeing a little bit of justice in this country. Finally, we see a little glimmer that every person is equal under the law. And I think that is a beautiful thing. And here is to many more indictments on the way. This is just the first step of many, but it tells you along the way, we have to be grounded not by emotion, but by the data. And this applied when we were back in the 2020 election and we were looking at the data and we saw that Biden would have enough votes when the remainder of the votes were counted to be president. And everybody pushed back on us saying, but Trump's in the lead and he says he's going to win. And we said, sit tight. That's not what the data says. Or in the supposed red wave of 2022, same thing.
Yep.
You have to be grounded by the data. And I want to thank the Meidas Mighty for keeping the faith, and not the faith, for just keeping focused on that data and understanding exactly what is going on. Michael Popak in the building. I just want to toss it over to Jay, to Jordy. Jordy really hasn't gotten a chance to speak. Jordy,
yeah, no. Just real. I'm feeling great. I just want to piggyback on what you were saying there, Brett, especially if you're new to the channel right now, watching us for the first time. Look, it's not that we want Trump to be indicted because we don't agree with him politically. That's not the reason. We want him to be indicted because he's a criminal. So this announcement today, it's a win for the rule of law and justice. This is a historic day. And Brett, that's exactly why we're not going to say, oh, this is a bad day. No, a criminal got indicted. That's exactly what happened today.
You know,
Michael
it's funny
Popak.
because I suggested, just to go off topic for a second, I suggested on the MeidasTouch podcast that we did earlier in the week that I was telling everybody I was on a haircut hiatus until the indictment happened because I was worried about getting the haircut and the indictment happening during it. But I said, watch, what if I get my haircut? That means he will get indicted right after that. Well, folks, I think that's exactly, I'm not saying
big bro.
Okay. We could get on Michael Popak.
Michael Popak, you've been with you host of Legal AF. You've been providing just facts to the Meidas Mighty now that this historic announcement has been made. Your reaction?
First of all, thank God I've been working closely with Karen for the last 2 years because she's a tough act to follow. I'd rather just run alongside her, which we've done, and what a great addition to our show. So we broke a streak. America has broken a streak, 90,155 days of not having an indicted president. It ends today. We'll have to restart that counter because finally, as we've predicted on Legal AF for a while, the first part of justice, many wheels of justice are running at the same time. The one in New York, Jack Smith's, Fani Willis, the ones that we know about, and all the permutations of that. If we had thought that Alvin Bragg was going to jump to the lead and be the first person to indict, maybe we thought that in January when he impaneled a grand jury, but probably not before, other than Karen Freeman-Agnifilo telling us to keep the faith. I've got a lot of pride in the office that I used to work in, and I think they'll get around to it. 2020, Ben, we told our audience, whatever size it was, that was the year of watching and analyzing. And we said in 2021 and 2022 would be the year of investigating. and 2023 would be the year of indictment, and into 2024 conviction, because that's how the wheels of justice roll. And so now we have the evidence today that when facts are presented to a grand jury, that it sits and methodically goes through 9 witnesses, I'm sure hundreds, if not thousands of pages of evidence, recalls witnesses that they want to hear from, maybe even expands the investigation to not just be Stormy Daniels, but be the broader catch and kill program that was conducted, orchestrated first by David Pecker of the National Enquirer, and then latched onto by Donald Trump, Kellyanne Conway, and Michael Cohen at that time. That Michael Cohen, not today's Michael Cohen. That seems to be the broader investigation. So Karen McDougal, the first one to get a large payment from Donald Trump of $150,000 directly. Then Alan Weisselberg's involvement with all that. We'll talk about Alan Weisselberg in a minute. So if you've got that being presented to the jury, what we know today, because again, everything's secret and everything's sealed, but it's a felony. That's what the reporting is. So we know that Alvin Bragg and his team were able to figure out how to put an elephant through the eye of a needle and come up with a felony, meaning 2 crimes, a crime of books and entry fraud covering up another crime. And they figured out how to do that. They got comfortable with it, and they presented that to the grand jury, who got really comfortable with the evidence and decided, despite all of the attacks on them and their integrity by Donald Trump, that, in his social media, trying to pierce that hermetically sealed secret grand jury that's supposed to be protected, that their deliberations are supposed to be protected, that didn't work. In fact, as most of his social media does, it backfired, because if you're sitting in that room and you're one of the 23 New Yorkers who have been selected for that grand jury, and you're taking your job seriously, which obviously they had and they are, then those kind of attacks on you only galvanizes the grand jury and makes them want to work harder and push back against the person that thinks so little of them that he thinks he can command them what to do and threaten them with his social media. It often backfires. Ben, you and I have covered how many cases where something that Donald Trump has said in a speech, in social media, at a rally, has been used against him by a judge in making a ruling, and here by a grand jury. It may not have been the reason that they indicted, but on a felony, but it certainly didn't help matters. He should have been quiet. He should have been respectful, but that's not Donald Trump. That I just described somebody that's not Donald Trump. So we have the indictment. Karen has outlined it beautifully what the next steps are going to be. I believe he's going to get Mirandized, just like any other common criminal that's picked up in New York. He'll be read as Miranda rights. He'll be fingerprinted, as Karen said. He may or may not be in handcuffs. We may or may not see that, but he's going to go to the bottom of the courthouse just like anybody else. There's no special chamber for former presidents who are treated with kid gloves and given some other, there's no fast pass like at Disney. He's going in the way everybody goes in, fingerprinted, mugshot, given the number, the identification number that Karen talked about, and then he's going to be brought back up, and he's going to be arraigned. Now, he's going to go out the wooden doors of the courthouse at the end, though, just to manage expectations. He's going to be released on his own recognizance. He may have to put up a bond, but he's going to walk out that day. And then we know what's going to happen next, and maybe we'll be down there. Maybe Karen and I'll head down there. He's going to be out in front of the steps of the courthouse, and he's going to have some sort of prepared speech before they put him, and the Secret Service puts him into a black SUV and takes him away. So, that's going to happen soon, as Karen reported, and we've all seen. They're beefing up security down there now. And as Karen accurately predicted last night on the midweek edition of Legal AF, she was the lone voice out there among all the talking heads that I've watched on all the major news networks to say, listen, just because they're going on a pre-scheduled hiatus for the holidays and childcare purposes, it doesn't mean that they can't also, before they go away next week, can't vote this week. And we went back and forth on that last night. And I was like, that's so right. They're going in today. Why can't they vote? Karen said it takes 60 minutes or less. Think about that, guys. 60 minutes or less for a prosecutor to present his case to the grand jury at the end and ask for the return of the indictment. That's all it takes. And so that's all it took. And now finally, I mean, I was rubbing my eyes when you guys were texting about what was just reported, and we're trying to jump online at the same time. It is hard to believe. And we're not thrilled because it's great for the MeidasTouch Network. We're thrilled because finally justice is being done. He's being brought to justice for this. And now, let's be frank, it does help Fani Willis. It does help Jack Smith. One, they get intel. They're watching the reaction of Donald Trump. Now that he's trapped like in a bear trap, how he squeals and reacts. And that'll be new evidence in their case. So they're watching. So Alvin Bragg gets the benefit in history for being the first prosecutor to indict a former president. But the other prosecutors get the benefits of drafting behind Alvin Bragg and seeing the reaction of Donald Trump and those around him, and then recalibrating their approach. I don't know if it speeds up Fani Willis, who has a grand jury of her own, likely in May, her regular grand jury. I don't know if it speeds up Jack Smith, who looks like he's awful close, maybe in Mar-a-Lago and in the other one. But it is helping them. They are watching. The world is watching, and the other prosecutors are watching.
And Popok, speaking of the world is watching, this is currently the #1 stream on YouTube in the entire world. More people are watching this stream and our coverage right now than Fox, than CNN, than MSNBC, than AP, than any other news network in the entire world, the #1 stream on YouTube. And so I will remind everybody watching, if you're not subscribed to the MeidasTouch Network on YouTube, it's free to subscribe. So please hit the subscribe button. We just passed 1 million subscribers. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. So please make sure to hit the subscribe button right now. More breaking news to report. We just got a statement from Michael Cohen that I'd like to read for everyone. Michael Cohen is my co-host on Political Beatdown that we do live every Tuesday and Thursday. We did a live Political Beatdown earlier in the day before this historic news that the Manhattan grand jury criminally indicted Donald Trump. But let's pull up Michael Cohen's statement that we just received. He says, "For the first time in our country's history, a president, current or former, of the United States has been indicted. I take no pride in issuing this statement and wish to also remind everyone of the presumption of innocence as provided by the Due Process Clause. However, I do take solace in validating the adage that no one is above the law, not even a former president. Today's indictment is not the end of this chapter, but rather just the beginning. Now that the charges have been filed, it is better for the case to let the indictment speak for itself. The two things I wish to say at this time is that accountability matters, and I stand by my testimony and evidence that I provided to the District Attorney of New York." Michael Popok, what do you think of Michael Cohen's statement right there?
I'm so proud to have Michael be with us, with you on Political Beatdown and otherwise. Who would have thought when the decision was made to have him, and his decision to join this movement of yours, that he would be really, as I called him on the Legal AF podcast a couple nights ago, the bride at the wedding and the body at the funeral, probably the most important, other than David Becker, witness against the president, witness for the prosecution, as we like to say. There's no greater one than Michael Cohen, and so eloquently put both a combination of historical resonance and presence in his statement, and even, a concession of his own role in it, that he takes no special pleasure in it. But he didn't pick being a witness in a case like this. Donald Trump picked who the witnesses would be. Donald Trump picked who his insiders would be and what what underhanded deeds he would have them do at various times. So for Donald Trump to say Michael Cohen is this or Michael Cohen is that, Michael Cohen is who Donald Trump chose at that moment in time to be his inside man and to handle all sorts of dirty tricks like paying off women who had sex with Donald Trump and were going to go public with it at the moment that it would have derailed his campaign and given new life, depending upon when it would have happened, to Hillary Clinton at that moment. They were beating her up mercilessly about Benghazi, about her email server. Who cares? Look at all the payoffs, criminal payoffs and cover-ups that Donald Trump was involved with that the voters should have known about when they were making their choice for who they wanted to be in the Oval Office. So kudos to Michael Cohen for hanging in there, and kudos to Alvin Bragg, who, look, there's been reporting that at the beginning of his tenure, and I don't know if this is true or not, maybe you can ask Michael Cohen one day what he thinks, but there is reporting that Alvin Bragg made a comment that he would never prosecute a case where Michael Cohen was the lead witness, because at the beginning of his tenure, he just had so much baggage in Alvin Bragg's mind, if that comment is true. But Michael Cohen, to his credit, in meeting with that office as many times as he did, turned that office around about the power of him as a witness and the credibility of him as a witness. Because I'm sure in the investigation, they got 7 or 8 other people to corroborate key moments in Michael Cohen's timeline that bolstered Michael Cohen's testimony. And you can't do the case without him. I mean, you can't. Michael Cohen has to be there. He's the bag man for the payment. He gets reimbursed. He's there for the David Pecker meeting when they designed the whole catch and kill program. He's telling the campaign, which is Kellyanne Conway, what happened. You can't do it without him. So everything that bolstered him, David Pecker saying, yes, I met with Michael Cohen, and Kellyanne Conway testifying, I assume that she met with David Pecker and Michael Cohen and all of that. So, yeah, and really, really great. And the New York Post, which is a Rupert Murdoch-owned newspaper that's been going after Donald Trump lately. I mean, look, Murdoch's not covered in glory, the opposite, especially the way Fox News works. But the New York Post has got its knives out right now for Donald Trump. They posted an article, I don't know if we can get it up in time, just now with this very... you'll see the photo of him and Stormy Daniels next to each other, and I don't want to say they're taking special glee in reporting the indictment, but they don't seem to be too upset about the Trump indicted headline on the front page of the New York Post right now.
Well, I can tell you this is what just went down on Fox. I think there was, you actually hear audible gasps when the announcement was made that the Manhattan grand jury was criminally indicting. Here, let's play that video.
He is an OG, right? If they give me, I mean, he is a badass. If he's got a mugshot, you might as well go right into it. And the thing is, his poll numbers have gone up with this. I just think this is going to make sure he is going to be on the ticket.
That's what that's their way of trying to spin it. I think there's another clip of showing the audible gasps. If we have that one, can we play that?
Here, we have just gotten word former President Donald Trump has been indicted by a grand jury in New York. Trump was under investigation by the DA's office for his alleged hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 campaign.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
that
good.
right. What about? Do we have the Jesse Waters clip too, Brett?
Yeah, let's play that.
Let's play that one.
This cannot stand. I actually agree with Jessica. This doesn't feel right. Something feels terrible.
GOP candidate.
You're in a cult.
Yeah, right? It's
You are
unbelievable.
in a cult.
By the way, brothers, who's the one in the earlier clip that you think went, It was just like this very, Somebody, we're going to track that down. We're gonna do an audio analysis. Somebody, Fox was not that plussed by the whole indictment.
Let's be real. We know from the behind the scenes text messages revealed in the Dominion lawsuit against Fox. We know from the text messages we've seen from Republican politicians throughout the January 6th committee hearings. We know what most of this Republican Party actually feels. the politicians, the ones with the power. We know
Mm-hmm.
what they actually feel about Donald Trump. And while they try to put on a supportive face on TV and act like they are full-blown cult members, many of these people, I'm not saying all of them, but many of them are just con artists themselves and are trying to ride Trump's coattails and grift off Trump while they still can
Mm-hmm.
and get as much power as they can by placating Donald Trump's base, whom they are absolutely terrified of. And they've also, as we've said on the show multiple times, they've created their own information apparati across
Ooh.
social media, across TV,
Hmm.
across radio, where they are continuing to, they first generate fake stories about what's happening. Then it goes through, it gets laundered through this cycle. And with Murdoch specifically, think about how many properties Murdoch owns. He has the Wall Street Journal when he wants to
Right.
dress stuff up a little nicer. He's got the New York Post when he wants a little tabloidy flair. He could throw things to TMZ when he wants things to hit a celebrity angle. They could do all that, anything that he wants in that angle, but it keeps going through this laundered disinformation echo chamber so much that ultimately it comes back to somebody like a Jesse Waters. And I think some of them end up drinking their own Kool-Aid. They're getting high off their own supply here. And so they've been telling their viewers over the past week that this case is dead. It's over. Look, they're going on vacation. Look, that's it. And clearly, if you looked at the data, that wasn't the case. And we all know right now, by seeing that an indictment actually has been issued, that they are once again living in a disinformation echo chamber. And now what are they going to do next? You could guess. Are they going to leave Trump? Would not count on it. All these people are going to double down, triple down on their support behind Trump until or after they're behind bars, if it means saving a few of those votes.
Brett, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because we are very intent on not pushing a narrative here, especially on Legal AF, about what's happening. We try to manage expectations. When we're wrong, we'll say we're wrong when the facts lead us in a certain direction, and we think based on our judgment and our body of work, and we're generally right about it. We'll say that. Why do you think the Fox continues to want to mislead its viewers and not manage expectations? I get they think that news cycles and short attention spans equal, they'll be able to get away with it. But why would you want to not, even if you think it's only a 5% chance that Donald Trump was going to be indicted this week, based on the way the grand jury was operating and moving and the little points of data that we were receiving, why wouldn't you at least want to manage some expectations so the next day or the next hour, you didn't have to go on with egg on your face and say, oh my God, he was indicted. We're so surprised and shocked. Why? Why? I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you.
From my perspective, and as somebody who has, worked in TV for many years, really the only thing that people in TV care about at the end of the day are ratings, because the higher the ratings you get, the higher you could covet advertisers, the higher rate you could charge advertisers. And so I think they realized, after January 6th, that as we saw with the Dominion filings, the behind the scenes communications, once they started to actually tell the truth was kryptonite to the network and to the Fox News viewer. And all of a sudden, all these alternatives popped up at the same time that didn't care about truth at all. Fox at that point didn't care about truth either, but they at least tried to pretend like they were a little bit of a news organization. But they dropped the act at this point, because the second that they actually decided to report on the January 6th insurrection honestly, they saw their viewership drop almost instantaneously. And Newsmax was the benefactor of that. You had Newsmax and OAN and Right Side Broadcasting Network and all these channels stealing their viewers. And you see in the Fox communications just how absolutely terrified they were of losing their viewers. So at that point, as a network, you have, do we hold on to our integrity and try to explain this thoughtfully to our audience and hope that honesty wins the day and we will win them back? Or do we quickly reverse course and give them what they want? And frankly, what this audience wants is they want lies. They want to be fed lies. They want Donald Trump to be this infallible figure. They want him to be this larger than life, untouchable guy who could do no wrong, who is actually taking on the deep state, who is actually defending the little guy. So they create this image, and you see that reflected at the Trump rallies with their various sort of cultish behavior and all that things. In a normal world, you want to create content that has integrity, that could capture an audience, and that's the right way to go about things. But at Fox, they were just completely controlled by their audience and not the other way around. As I said to Jordy and Ben the other day, it's like the tail wagging dog here over at Fox. They're not truthfully in control over at Fox, despite the power that they have. Jordy, what are your thoughts?
No, and by the way, you said it perfectly there, Brett. Fox created its own bubble, its own MAGA echo chamber, and they're forced to continue on with these lies because that's what their audience wants. The majority of the audience is out there. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want to be gaslit. Like if you look at Jesse Waters, oh no, this is a horrible. Give that man a Razzie. I mean, he wasn't even good at acting that he was upset about this. It goes to show you. And when we talk about this from the network, about how much we love this community, the Meidas and the MeidasTouch network, it's because people are sick of being gaslit by legacy media. And they know that they can rely on us to just follow the facts. And wherever those facts leads, that's what we're going to tell. We don't have a spin on this network. Subscribe right now. I mean, this is why Fox is imploding day by day. And really, this is why I love the MeidasTouch community so much, because they come here for the truth, and that's what we're going to keep delivering for y'all.
Popok.
I have one follow-up for Brett on his part. I feel like I'm at a press conference. Mr. Meiselas, one follow-up.
Michael Popok, Legal AF, yes.
Or Legal AF, right. Thank you. How much do you think, based on today, Donald Trump is going to grift off of his cult followers with I mean, right now, as we scramble to get on the air and make a graphics package to make this look professional, which amazing how quickly Salty and Brett, you guys pulled this together. That's how quickly those around Donald Trump in social media and fundraising world and MAGA Inc., his PAC, are using this as a fundraiser. He raised $500,000 a day 2 weeks ago when he said he was going to be arrested on Tuesday, right? The false flag announcement, the fire alarm, the fire drill, just to see how much he could raise. Now that he's really been indicted, using that as the benchmark, how quickly do they send out these emails asking for cash and through Facebook, and how much do they raise per day?
I think that he'll raise millions of dollars off of this. But what I've been saying for a while now is a lot of people kind of use that as an excuse to say, oh well, maybe we shouldn't indict him. Like,
drives me crazy.
Yeah, like if you indict him, all that's going to happen is he's going to raise a whole bunch of money. He's definitely going to get the nomination.
He's going to be elected.
He's going to be he's going to be a martyr. And I think Jon Stewart actually said it best last week when he was on Fareed Zakaria's CNN show, and Fareed Zakaria raised those same questions. Well, aren't you concerned about him being a martyr? Aren't you concerned? And Jon Stewart essentially was like, well, I don't think we should take anything into account on prosecuting somebody. The rule of law should be the rule of law, and that's it. And I could not agree more. So is Donald Trump going to raise probably millions of dollars, probably very quickly, probably multiple millions of dollars every single day over the next couple of days? I do think so. But at the same time, that's what he does. He's the king grifter. That's his MO. Mm-hmm. And then, somebody texted me before, and, they said, well, Donald Trump has a lock for the nomination now. It's a sure thing. He definitely has it. And I mean, yes, but he's had the lock on the nomination. As Ben likes to say on the show, MAGA is a cult. They were never going to not vote for the cult leader. That was never going to happen.
He lost by 7 million votes. Who in their right mind thinks he does better the second time around as an indicted candidate?
Yeah, I want you to find me.
The cult does.
cult,
The cult who thinks that algorithms were secretly beamed from bunkers in Italy to Hugo Chavez's dead body, and then that beamed it to Dominion, and Dominion changed the results, and then the backup paper ballots. They just imported bamboo from President.
But Ben, here's the problem with here's the problem though with that, right? The cult buys it hook, line, and sinker. Nobody else does. And here is the catch-22 that the Republican Party finds themselves in, or what I like to call it, the catch-45 of the Republican Party as a nod to Trump. They have to appease the cult. Fox has to appease the cult. The cult doesn't win elections. The cult may win primary elections, but as we've seen, by and large, with the Carrie Lakes, with the Donald Trumps, it is a disaster electorally when the cult gets their way. So will the cult be mad? Yes. But find me one persuadable American. Find me one persuadable American who goes, well, I wasn't going to vote for that guy, but then he was arrested and was criminally indicted. And then I decided, you know what? That guy should be president of the United States. I'm sorry. That does not exist. And to your point, Popok, Donald Trump has already released a statement. First, I just want to go back for a second and show everybody this New York Post cover that Popok was speaking about before in big red letters on the New York Post homepage right now. Trump indicted, as Popok said. They have that picture of Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels front and center on the New York Post. Remember, everything is a choice. Everything they do is a choice. And as we've seen from the Dominion filings, they are choices that are approved or critiqued at the highest levels from Rupert Murdoch himself. So now let's head on over to the statement that Donald Trump just released. Let's see what craziness that he is speaking about. Here is Trump's statement by Donald Trump, who still thinks he's the president. This is political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. From the time I came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and even before I was sworn in as your president in the United States, the radical left Democrats, the enemy of the hardworking men and women of this country, have been engaged in a witch hunt to destroy the Make America Great Again movement. You remember it just like I do. Russia, 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 the Mueller hoax, Ukraine, 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 impeachment hoax 1, impeachment hoax 2, the illegal and unconstitutional Mar-a-Lago raid, and now this. See, Donald Trump's been doing this a lot lately. I'm just going to take an aside where he neatly lists out all of his crimes. I think it's going to be very helpful for prosecutors to be like, what else did he do again? Oh yeah, the Russia, the documents. Okay, I could follow along with this, but let's pull back up the statement. Trump continues, the Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen in their obsession with trying to, quote, get Trump. But now they've done the unthinkable, indicting a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. And then he goes on to the next page. And I just want to say there, one of the only reasons that I think he actually announced for president when he did, I'm not saying that he's not actually running. I do believe that he is running for the nomination and that he will win the nomination. But one of the reasons he announced so early is exactly so he could say that election interference line. That's all he wants. But once again, like we said, it doesn't matter what he say. His BS, his gaslighting does not affect the rule of law and the way prosecutors are working. Okay, so let's continue on now with Trump's statements. He's on to page 2 now. Quote, I don't know, he's quoting himself here. This is in quotes all of a sudden.
There's no way he wrote this, by the way.
Yeah, never. It's still in quotes. I don't even understand. And the quotes don't end. They just begin. Never before in our nation's history has this been done. The Democrats have cheated countless times over the decades, including spying on my campaign, but weaponizing our justice system to punish a political opponent who just so happens to be a president of the United States. I mean, you're not a president of the United States. And by far the leading Republican candidate for president has never happened before, ever. Yeah, because you're the only one who is a criminal, Donald Trump, on multiple accounts. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, who is handpicked and funded by George Soros, is a disgrace. Okay, so you get a little bit of anti-Semitism thrown in the mix here on page 2, paragraph 2. rather than stopping the unprecedented crime wave taking over New York City. Once again, crime's actually been down in New York City
It's
year
totally
over year.
down.
He's doing Joe Biden's dirty work, ignoring the murders and burglaries and assaults he should be focused on. This is how Bragg spends his time. I believe this witch hunt will backfire massively on Joe Biden. The American people realize exactly what the radical left Democrats are doing here. Everyone could see it. So our movement and our party, united as strong, will first defeat Alvin Bragg, and then we will defeat Joe Biden. And we are going to throw every last one of these crooked Democrats out of office so we can make America great again. So there you have it, a statement, a traitorous statement from Donald Trump, rife with anti-Semitism, with racism, with conspiracies, a clear outline of all of his other criminal behavior, which I always appreciate as somebody who has difficulty keeping up. Ben, you're the king of reading the Donald Trump statement, so I feel a little bad that I took the read away from you, but how do you feel about that Trump statement right there?
Yeah, it's definitely okay. But before we read his new statement, and I'll have to make that a little bigger on my screen because Salty,
Trump
my
misspelled
eyes are not,
indicted, and I'm
gonna need some sort of magnifying glass for for those. But let's pull up the previous statement that he made, I believe yesterday, where he was applauding the grand jury, just so you can see the kind of deranged, malignant narcissist.
Ben, read it for our audio listeners.
Yeah, of course I'm gonna read it.
Make sure you read it for our audio listeners.
I will definitely be reading this for the audio listeners.
I love this show. I got to be on the show more often.
That's what happens when you put three brothers together, Popak. You know, brothers are going to be brothers.
I feel like the slightly cool dad on this show right now. All right, go ahead.
I will read it, Brett. I'm going to read the statement. Pull it back up. Donald Trump goes, I have gained such respect for this grand jury and perhaps even the grand jury system as a whole. The evidence is so overwhelming in my favor and so ridiculously bad for the highly partisan and hateful district attorney that the grand jury is saying, hold on, we are not a rubber stamp, which most grand juries are branded as being. We are not going to vote against a preponderance of evidence or against large numbers of legal scholars, all saying there is no case here. Drop this sick witch hunt now. And as I said, like, if you read it the way it's intended to, that's like a real abusive like person. Like, hey, you know, I just want to let you know, I love you a lot, but don't do that. You know, and that's how he approaches a legal case, right? So then you have that like bizarre, malignant, narcissistic, whatever. By the way, he could always just say with that statement, you know, and Popak, to your point, like, why wouldn't he just manage expectations? Because they are not doing this through the legal system, right? They are doing this counter to the legal system to overthrow our democracy, to destroy it. So he wants to go and say, after he goes, well, the grand jury loved me. They loved me. I heard that they thought I was the best. But then George Soros funded leftist prosecutor, that's what they do, though. That's what they set it up for. So here's the most recent statement. Let's see if it's slightly bigger for my eye. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
As we all know, Ben has the best vision of all three brothers.
Jordy, merch alert, radical left monsters.
Whoa, interesting one.
That's a good one. I like it.
We'll definitely put that in the think about it pile, Po.
All right. Brett, for our audio listeners, I will read this. I will not tell
Ben, and enunciate, please.
I will not telepathically transmit it to them. It's let's pull it back up. Now Salty's punking me. These thugs and radical left monsters have just indicated, he wrote. That's what he wrote. These thugs and radical left monsters have
one job.
Okay, this he did right.
These thugs and radical left monsters. Everybody, we have a historic announcement to make. This was the first president in history who has been indicated. Because these thugs and radical left monsters have just indicated the 45th president of the United States of America and the leading Republican candidate by far for the 2024 nomination for president. Now, this is all in caps. He goes, this is an attack on our country, the likes of which has never been seen before. It is likewise a continuing attack on our once free and fair elections. The USA is now a third world nation, a nation in serious decline. So sad. And he's got that photo with the ridiculous avatar of himself.
What is that?
It's his face disgracing the American
That's
flag.
what it is. You're right.
And here's the thing too,
it's
Brett,
the
when you
Farley.
talk about
isn't
this,
it the Farley Obama takeoff?
yeah. Everything. I think though, when he was asked by Hannity, he was asked the question, first off, he was like, so what do you think about President Xi? What do you think about Putin? What do you think about Kim Jong-un? It's like, well, great people. And they go, what do you think about Obama? This was from the interview last night. He goes, I don't really know anything about him. I kid you not about Obama. I kid you not.
I have the clip. You want to play it?
Do you have that clip of him?
I don't
saying
believe
it?
I've got it.
Yeah. Play the clip just so you know.
Yeah, the reason he ran for president.
And give names and give me quick, short sentences, narratives, whatever comes to your mind. Putin.
Well, I'm going to have to go a little short, but I got along with him great. Had I been president, he would have been much better off because he wouldn't have gone into Ukraine. But ultimately, he's going to take over all of Ukraine.
Xi.
A man I got along with him great until COVID came in. We would have been able to work together very well. I made an unbelievable deal for our farmers and manufacturers where China was giving us $50 billion a year to our farmers and our manufacturers.
Kim Jong-un.
Again, got along with him great. People don't want to hear that. A lot of people say, that's terrible to get along with him great. When somebody has nuclear weapons that can blow up the world, it's nice to get along. I got along with him great.
Okay.
The other one, though, where he talks about, you don't have the one where he talks about
Shouldn't have
Obama.
doubted you guys.
But there is the question where he then says, he asks a question about, well, what do you think about Obama? And his actual response is, I don't really know much about him. I kid you not. But I think most of the country, truthfully, 65 now, 70% of the country watches that with disgust and says, what in the world is that? And then 30% of the cult looks at that and loves it. But that's why I think, though, there's truly a new paradigm that exists right now in our politics, right? And the large media networks do such a disservice in general, but particularly when they're like, oh, Democrats, liberals, progressives, Republicans, conservative. They're not conservative. They're not conserving anything. There's nothing conservative about them. They're pro-insurrectionists. They don't believe in free and fair elections. They're championing songs by the J6 choir. They go, please stand and put your hand over your heart for the J6 choir. That's not a conservative view. That is weird. That is cult behavior, and it needs to be called out as such, and the large media networks just don't do that. So to me, the paradigm is you have Republicans who are fascists, who are insurrectionists, who are authoritarians, who are QAnon, who are Trump cultists, who are MAGA, and then you have the Democratic Party, which now stands for democracy. Progressives, you've got liberals, you got independents, you got people not affiliated with political parties, you got people who used to be conservatives who go, what the hell is this stuff? And we can all have disagreements, but we fundamentally believe in democracy, in normalcy, in humanity, in the rule of law, and we don't believe in cults. And I just think that's an important point to stress over and over and over again. Popak, as you see those statements, though, as you see Donald Trump cycling from, I love grand juries are the greatest, to how dare you leftist George Soros, that's a madman. That is a deranged, vile individual. And if large media networks don't call it out, you know what? I don't even care anymore that large media networks don't call it out. You know why? Because we've got their viewers now. Because they've let people down. And so now people just want to hear the truth. They don't want to be gaslit. So make sure, by the way, you're subscribed to this YouTube channel. Subscribe right now. We just passed 1 million subscribers. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers. Right now, this is the most watched live stream of all YouTube streams in the entire world right now on this live. Make sure you also subscribe to the Legal AF podcast, where you get your podcasts. Please search Legal AF. I host it with Michael Popak and Karen Friedman Agnifilo. We've been breaking down these legal issues. And if you've been following Legal AF, today was not a surprise. We've been keeping you updated on this and other legal developments. Also, make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast for MeidasTouch as well. This is a special edition of the MeidasTouch podcast, but wherever you get your audio podcast, you could do it right now. Search MeidasTouch, search Legal AF, search Political Beatdown. Of course, you're going to want to subscribe to the Political Beatdown audio podcast. Michael Cohen's the co-host. Who more do you want to hear from now other than Popak, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and me? But no, you got to hear from Michael Cohen on Political Beatdown, Lights On by Jessica Denson, Politics Girl, The Weekend Show, Majority 54, all of the MeidasTouch shows. But Popak, your reaction, and again, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube. It's free. Popak.
How many networks give probably the most influential witness in the history of indictments a podcast in real time?
What more could you ask for, people? What more could you ask?
Yeah, you can't ask for it. No one's doing that. We're doing it. Look, I'm going to respond to it really quickly. I'm going to back into it. Everybody on this network, the founders and everybody that's affiliated with it in one way or the other, is a believer and a lover of a healthy two-party system. We got a two-party system. We're not going parliamentarian. This is our system. Ever since we got rid of wigs and whatever else we learned in high school and grammar school, this is it. And I've always been a supporter, believer, and lover of a two-party system. I've had plenty, and I still do have plenty of friends that are not MAGA but are Republican, and we need a healthy two-party system to make this great thing called democracy work. Right now, we're one party short. That one party has had itself co-opted first by the Tea Party movement. Well, you can go back further. First by Karl Rove, by Lee Atwater, which led to things like the Tea Party movement, which was not just an aberration, but eventually hollowed out the entire party and became the party now led by MAGA, QAnon, and everything else. And that is the party. So we are one party short in a two-party system. We got a party, the Democrats, and we got this thing that's a cult, this other thing. In terms of sort of where we are in that process, believers of justice, believers in democracy have to get behind the fact that this president has been indicted. I grew up in the, like I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. I watched Watergate on television as a small child. Everybody got together, Republican and Democrat and Independent, to call out a corrupt president. And we found that was part of our civic and patriotic duty to do that. And it made us sad, but it was necessary when that helicopter flew away from the White House, leaving Saigon, the fall of Saigon with Nixon in it, we went into a healing process through Ford, through Carter, and everything else. That's what should be happening now. But because we don't have a party, we have a corrupted party on the other side that has fallen in love and at the knee of Donald Trump, the way cultists do. Pick yourselves up, party. Have some pride. It's okay to acknowledge that the guy that was your standard bearer and that you voted for, like all these people that have these bumper stickers, don't blame me, I voted for Trump, that your guy was corrupt. It's okay to acknowledge that. That's the first step in healing. The first step in any self-help program is admit you have a problem. Admit that Donald Trump is a problem instead of the greatest president that this history has ever known, above Lincoln, above Washington, above Jefferson, FDR, and everybody else. It is ridiculous. Call it out for what it is. He was corrupt when he was in business. I watched it because I lived in this area during the time. He was corrupt when he owned casinos. He was corrupt when he developed hotels. He was corrupt when he worked with his father. He was corrupt the whole way on Celebrity Apprentice and multi-level marketing schemes. He was corrupt when he got in the White House. And a guy that's corrupt acts corrupt. And he brought all of his people with him and all his henchmen. And he continued to create a kleptocracy in the White House that finally, because he can't help himself, as we see now, which finally got him into trouble because he touched every burner on the stove. He blew through every guardrail of democracy that our founding fathers put in place, and then said, "Catch me if you can." Okay, you got caught. You got caught today. You're going to get caught tomorrow with Fani Willis. You're going to get caught the next day with Jack Smith. And instead of being upset about it and call it a shame on America and a witch hunt, his followers the scales need to drop from their eyes, and they need to call it for what it is. That's the first step in patriotism. And we do it as Democrats. When we've got corrupt Democrats, we call it out and we send them into the wilderness for a while, whether it's Bill Clinton and his problems or, really anybody. If Obama had done half of what Donald Trump had done, he'd be in jail already. And the Democrats would be the first one to lead him there. That's the difference in the party. And that's what this network is founded on.
No doubt about it. And that this network is also founded upon bringing everybody the news as it happens, unfiltered. And we are just now learning as well that you could take this for what it's worth. Once again, it's coming from a Trump source. But Trump attorney Joe Tacopina has told at least NBC News at this point that Trump is expected to surrender to the Manhattan DA's office early next week. So there you have it, straight from Joe Tacopina, who has surely made a spectacle of himself on the airwaves in recent
He's not
weeks.
even the lead lawyer. He's the lead lawyer. He plays a lawyer on television for Donald Trump. But Susan Necklace is the lead lawyer. We've talked about this on all versions of Legal AF and in our hot takes. Susan Necklace, who lost the 17-count indictment and conviction for the Trump Organization, for whatever reason, Trump still has faith in her, and she is the lead person that is the criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump in the Stormy Daniels affair. Tacopina may be carrying her bag, her litigation bag, her attaché case, but he is not the lead lawyer. As we've seen, he's not ready for primetime, at least not for Donald Trump.
It's interesting. He's got like... I was going to say he's got like his TV lawyers who are on the air for him. And then he's got the people who are working behind the scenes. And I think it's interesting who he puts out there on the airwaves to go on the Foxes, to go on the Ari Melbers, and who he's got working behind the scene. I got to say, Jordy has been probably prepared for this moment, perhaps more than just about anybody. I mean, I'm sure the Meidas Mighty has seen this, but if you're new, you got to see the indictment season t-shirt that we got in the MeidasTouch store at store.meidastouch.com, and just watch Jordy's brilliance here, folks. I'm play it for you right now.
Lock him up. Indictment season is upon us. Celebrate with the new indictment season t-shirt and v-neck exclusively at store.meidastouch.com.
Oh, you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Lock him up. Let's go.
Lock him up.
What a big day. What a big day.
I never saw Make Lying Wrong Again. That's a new one. I like that one.
We got it all in the store at store.meidastouch.com. So check it out. Great way to celebrate. And Ben, I think we got another incredible guest.
Michael Popak, I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to the Legal AF podcast that I host with Michael Popak and Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. It's on twice a week. Wherever you get your audio podcast, just search Legal AF. It is always an honor to host that show with you, Michael Popak, as well as Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. What a superstar she is, and it's such a privilege to have her on our network.
Right,
thank you so much, Michael Popak. We appreciate you. And everybody, make sure you hit subscribe right now on this YouTube channel. It is free. This is now the most watched stream, as my face is chopped in half.
That was fun.
This is the most watched stream on all of YouTube in the entire world right now. More people are watching this coverage, and I think people are watching this coverage over other news because I think the large media networks have just lost their way.
Yep.
People are sick and tired of being gaslit. People are sick and tired of hearing the Donald Trump cult be normalized by large media networks. And here at the MeidasTouch Network, we just call them out. We say, that's a fascist. That's what a traitor looks like. That is what a criminal looks like. And why do we say that? Because that is the truth. And one of our biggest truth tellers here on the MeidasTouch Network is Jessica Denson, host of the Lights On podcast with Jessica Denson. It's one of the new podcasts we have here on the MeidasTouch Network. And Jessica's journey for all who don't know her story, is she worked for a brief period of time in that 2016 Trump campaign. She worked in the Trump campaign in one of their Latina outreach divisions. She left it fairly early after the heinous and despicable conduct was revealed to her. She sued Donald Trump. She prevailed in her lawsuit, and she's the reason why Donald Trump's NDAs have been completely abolished. And Jessica Denson just started, just as Jessica took on Donald Trump, her against Trump's army of lawyers all by herself. She then assembled a legal team as her fighting spirit for democracy became very, very, very clear and apparent, and a big victory. But she showed the path of how you win in a legal fight with Donald Trump, and how just one person has that power. So it's an honor to have Jessica Denson here share her thoughts. And again, it's an honor to be Jessica Denson's sidekick on the Lights On podcast. So search Lights On. So Jessica, historic day. What is your reaction to this news?
Joy to the world is my reaction. Joy to the world. This is, I think, the beginning of a great exhaling that the free world is going to begin to take when justice for this traitor, this treasonous, corrupt individual who has enjoyed a lifetime of impunity, harming so many people around the world, is finally coming to justice. I'm so happy. Actually, our mutual friend that put us in touch, that put me in touch with the MeidasTouch Network, texted me, and we just were able to share. It was so wonderful to share with her, being the first, because we have lived inside of this corruption. We have seen this corruption firsthand, both going blindly in to support this man and to thinking very ignorantly at one point that he was somebody who actually had a spirit of good for this country, which is completely not true. And were deceived and put our good faith and goodwill into what we thought was a cause for American greatness, and then experienced firsthand what a criminal, corrupt enterprise he has been running for years. So I'm so happy. I think that I put this out a little while ago. There's going to be all kinds of commentary, all kinds of sowing of doubt and speculation of why is this the first charge? This wasn't the strongest. I've already rebutted that on the Lights On podcast about how serious it is for a president to deceive the public to gain power, to gag someone to gain power. And of course, I have so much firsthand experience with this, with the NDAs, but it's actually quite fitting because it's chronological. I don't know if I haven't been watching your live coverage, so maybe you've already touched on this, but I think it's so fitting that of all of the crimes that we know about that Donald Trump has committed, that are not outside of the statute of limitations, we're cleaning up chronologically, starting with 2016 hush money payments, falsification of business records in 2017. And it's likely, not for sure, but it's likely going to be a chronological drop of indictments. Maybe possibly the next will be Fani Willis with the 2021 January 6th fallout, and then Jack Smith 2021 and 2022 Mar-a-Lago. So it may just be a very fitting chronological cleanup of the Donald Trump crime spree that we're witnessing here. And I am so beyond anything grateful. You guys know how invested I have been personally in wanting to push for justice and knowing that this can't be something that we just say, oh, well, we'll deal with it with the political process. No, the criminal justice system has to handle the crimes of this man. And so to be here with you, who have amplified my story and my fight in such a beautiful way. You, Ben, Brett, and Jordy, and everybody at MeidasTouch have far and away been the strongest, most beautiful sharers of my story, and I can't thank you enough. So it's really special to be here with the three of you on this historic day.
We appreciate that, Jessica. It's the least that we can do because you have fought to amplify our democracy. So for us to share your incredible work with the world is frankly the least that we can do. But speaking of which, you have firsthand experience litigating against Donald Trump. You've been in the courtroom against Donald Trump's lawyers consistently. So from your experience, what advice would you give to people who are now litigating against Donald Trump, who are in the courtroom from somebody who won their legal battle against Donald Trump?
The absolute number one piece of advice is stay focused. Don't move. Don't move. They're going to throw so much noise. They're going to throw so much gaslighting. I've talked about this before, how they took my behavior as one individual woman out there who literally started on her own to save my life and to continue to have meaning in the world and anything that I went forward with. I realized that was my premise for bringing this lawsuit in the first place was, if I don't do this, I'll never stand for anything in this world. I have to do this now. And they threw so much shit at the fan in my case to try to distract, to try to call my behavior political when they are the most political actors in the world. Just stay focused. Don't move. My case experienced significant delays and setbacks. They tried to change forums. They tried to go judge shopping. They did every single thing they possibly could to get me to move from my mark. And I just simply never moved. So that's my number one piece of advice. Don't move. I have great faith that this grand jury did not get to this point on a weak premise. They got here on a very strong premise. I think that Alvin Bragg has done a very methodical job of getting here. I think that it's quite evident that the other prosecutors investigating Trump, time is the biggest indicator how much time it's taken them to get to this point. And God knows all of us wished this would have happened sooner, but the one thing that time has given them is the opportunity to really strengthen and solidify their base, their framework, and their the rock that they're standing on. And like I said, biggest piece of advice, don't move from that rock. You have truth on your side. Truth has already won this fight. You simply just don't move from it.
And so the Meidas Mighty out there have all been very inspired by your story. What else would you like to tell the Meidas Mighty on this historic day? What should they be prepared for? What would you tell them to start reflecting on, as you know, we should expect that these MAGA Republicans who don't like the rule of law, who support insurrections, who brag about singing with the J6 choir. I mean, how humiliating, who hold rallies, wacko Waco rallies, supporting people like David Koresh, who's a pedophile terrorist, and support people like that who like do Timothy McVeigh rallies. Like it isn't normal times, folks, with this modern day MAGA Republican Party. So what is it that you want to kind of tell all the Meidas Mighty out there that they should be prepared for, again, from someone like you who has been in the trenches in these legal battles with Donald Trump?
Well, to the Meidas Mighty, Meidas Mighty is doing wonderful work. I don't know, they don't need to be preached to, but one thing I can say is that, like I've said before, take great comfort and strength in the position that you are in, being on the side of truth, on the side of democracy. And I think you know this, Ben and Brett and Jordy, from building this network. The most important things that we do in life are not the easiest. they're the hardest, right? The hardest things are the things that give us the most gratification, the most blessing. When we handle the hardest things in our lives, they then keep us from having to handle them again. This is like the law of the universe. When we are brave enough and courageous enough and we build those muscles to handle these hard situations, then we don't have to face them again. So we are facing a test, and it is, I always repeat this because I feel so grateful to be living in this moment of history, to have the opportunity, you and I and all of us out there, for us to be the ones that have this opportunity to defend our democracy, to defend freedom for the future, to be the ones that say, no, authoritarians are not going to get away with committing crimes and treason in the freest country in the world and walk away. No, we are going to put an end to that on our watch. And will it be easy? Not necessarily. But is it absolutely necessary? Yes, it is. So to the Meidas Mighty, you're already on the right track. You just don't waver. You take great faith, you be strong. Truth is on your side. Truth has already won. And just a message to, the others still in the grasp of Donald Trump, in the grasp of Fox News and all this gaslighting, people who are going to lie to them and tell them this is a political persecution, and lie to them and tell them they're not after Donald Trump, they're after you. How dare they do that? Donald Trump has used and abused his own followers. He has sent his own followers to their death. This is healing and restitution and an answer and justice for them as well. How dare anyone tell the duped and deceived and lied to followers of Donald Trump that this is something that is after them? Hell no, this is for you. This is for a blessing for you. And even, you're ready for it, it's even a blessing for Donald Trump. I heard Popak, just as I was coming on, talk about healing. And that's at the heart of the matter. If you go to just the moral foundation for our justice system, it is for reformation. I've talked about this before. Penitentiary, the word penitentiary comes from penitence, which means thought, reform, rethinking one's actions. That is an absolute gift to a man like Donald Trump, who in 70 plus years on this earth has not yet had the opportunity to face the truth. Truth is the greatest gift. Truth is love, folks. Truth is love. So this justice is an act of love, even to Donald Trump.
And before I toss it over to Brett, I just want to point out to everyone watching the screen outside the Manhattan District Attorney's office, we just saw Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg leave the office, get into the SUV. That is what you're watching on the screen right now. You see the crowds beginning to gather around the Manhattan District Attorney's office. The police have cordoned off a lot of the areas surrounding it. But yes, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg just getting out of the office, getting into the SUV, leaving. That is what you just saw right there on TV live here on the MeidasTouch Network. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe right now, as 1 million subscribers, and this is the most watched YouTube stream in the world right now. More people watching this than any news network in the entire world, and it's thanks to the Meidas Mighty out there. None of this is possible without you, and of course to our great correspondents like Jessica Denson, Karen Friedman, Agnifilo, and others. Brett, thoughts?
Yeah, well, Jessica, I just want to say you are certainly one of the single strongest people I know, and your strength is contagious, your passion is contagious, your love is contagious, and on the contrary, Donald Trump is weak. And a lot of people think that Donald Trump is a strong man, but what you have showed is that when somebody with strength, when somebody with integrity stands up to a bully, look what happens. And that, I think, is what we are seeing right here as we see the images of Alvin Bragg in New York drive away. That is what we just saw there in New York. And I like that you frame this as a test, because what's coming is really a test of our institutions at the highest level. And I want to pull up right now some of these tweets that we are seeing from the House Judiciary Committee. Remember, this is supposed to be a committee that upholds the rule of law. And you see here the House Judiciary GOP. This is an account run by none other than Jim Jordan. And in the sequence, he says at first, "This happened in America. This happened in America. Sad day for our country." Nope. Nobody is above the law. Jim Jordan, nobody. Then he retweets himself from the House Judiciary account. Outrageous. Then the next tweet, he echoes his Trump, Elon, Kanye tweet, the infamous, famous tweet where he put a curse on all these people, I think, because between that list, everybody knows what happened with all three of those people at this point. And he goes, Mueller, Schiff, Bragg, which once again, is he just listing the people who are investigating Donald Trump's crimes? Like, you're just calling attention to Donald Trump's criminality here.
And Brett, didn't they also post that one, which was like Kanye, Elon,
That's what
Trump?
I just said.
Yeah. And it's just Jim Jordan having a conversation with himself on Twitter. Like, that's what he does. He doesn't do anything. He yells at himself on Twitter. I mean,
Sorry, I wasn't listening to you, Brett.
I literally
another byproduct.
I was literally like, and this echoes the Kanye.
It was kind of the whole point of what
the whole point of what he was saying.
Pretty the entire synopsis of it.
But all good. Good to know you're paying attention there, Ben. And then let's look at this. Let's look at this absolute detestable, despicable traitor, Kevin McCarthy, and what Kevin McCarthy had to say here. Kevin McCarthy tweets out, "Alvin Bragg has irreparably damaged our country in an attempt to interfere in our presidential election as he routinely frees violent criminals to terrorize the public. He weaponized our sacred system of justice against President Donald Trump." Once again, not president. And once again, crime is actually down in New York year over year. They just spread these lies because they know that they could talk crap about American cities, and it's actually very offensive to a lot of America the way they speak about American cities.
And you haven't talked about Bakersfield yet, Brett. I didn't miss that.
No, I haven't talked about Bakersfield, Kevin McCarthy's hometown, which is one of the single most called Killing County. Have everybody seen the documentary that Ben here produced with Colin Kaepernick? It's Killing County. They have the most police shootings per capita. They have the most homicides in all of California. So maybe Kevin McCarthy should be concerned about his own backyard, which has a much higher crime rate than all the cities that he rails on. And let's pull.
You know what they're focused on, though, Brett? You know what these MAGA Republicans want to talk about?
Washing machines, gas stoves.
No. Yeah. Well. Okay. Ready? I'll give you the choices.
Woke.
You ready?
I'm excited.
I'm ready. Is it pronouns? Is it M&Ms?
This week you're talking about this week.
Bathrooms? Is it Mr. Potato Head? Is it Dr. Seuss? Is it stoves? Or is it public urination? Which issue?
I'm gonna
hold on. Let me look in the chat to see what the chat thinks. We'll make this a little interactive. I mean, we could technically do a vote, but what does everyone think that the MAGA Republicans are focused on from that list this week? Okay, I'm looking right now, and it looks like
woke, drag queens.
Okay, critical race theory, but it looks like the overwhelming one is public urination. So can we see from Lauren Boebert what the hearing that the MAGA Republicans held today was? And if we've got that clip, Brett, let's play it.
And these changes are now law here in D.C., correct?
Do you mean the revised criminal code?
Yes.
No, those are not the law.
Those are not the law.
The
revised criminal code was rejected by...
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I'm talking to Mr. Allen.
Yes,
Mr. Allen, did you or did you not decriminalize public urination in Washington, D.C.? Did you lead the charge to do so?
No, the revised criminal code left that as a criminal charge.
Did you lead the charge to decriminalize public urination in Washington, D.C.?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever vote in favor of decriminalizing public urination in Washington, D.C.?
The revised criminal code that was passed by the council.
Did you ever support?
Kept it as a criminal offense.
And you support this criminal?
I voted for it. Yeah.
You voted to keep it as a criminal offense.
That's correct.
It's like she wants to make a point, but at the same time, she didn't even do her homework on the point. And we're going to get into some of these GOP House conferences, which listeners of the show know I like to call the Republican Party professional rake steppers, because they seem to always throw out the rakes and then step on them and it smacks them in the face. All these hearings tend to absolutely backfire on them because, let's face it, they don't come prepared. They're facing off against really intelligent, well-educated, scholarly people on the Democratic side who do come well prepared, who are armed with the facts. And it's just endless humiliation every time they try to do this. So we're going to go through some of these hearings. At the same time, we are also gradually getting in clips as well from Donald Trump, from Donald Trump's attorneys. So we're going to be doing all sorts of that stuff. I also want to play this clip that we just got here from Alina Habba, Trump attorney who weighed in. I believe this is Alina Habba phoning it in to Fox News. I believe she called this pathetic, the indictment of Donald Trump. Let's hear a renowned attorney, Alina Habba.
We all are aware that this is probably the most legally pathetic case that we've seen. And just knowing the facts as I know them, based on comments to the press by people like Michael Cohen, who they're resting their case on, I think his sentiments are that this is a result of him leading in the polls, doing incredibly well. He is the leading candidate, as we know. And when people are afraid of someone being successful and fixing the mess that our country is, they come after you. So this is the same thing that President Trump has been dealing with for years. And I can't say that he's surprised. I don't think that would be how I would describe his state of mind. I think that he's disappointed in what has become a sad day for our country.
Jessica Denson, your reaction.
The only thing I could think of while she was talking, it's just noise, like she's just noise to me. But what I was thinking of is the other networks that are going to be constantly framing these indictments in the context of Donald Trump being a political candidate. Oh, how does it affect his candidacy? Oh, how are the other candidates going to react? Instead of saying, this is an at-large criminal who should have been charged years ago. It's obscene that he's running for president in the first place. I think we should return to the framing that the Huffington Post had for Donald Trump in 2016, where they put him in the entertainment column. Now we just should put him in the criminal justice column, not in the political column. So, you know, that's all noise. Yeah, that's the Trump sycophant playbook. He's good for this country, blah, 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 whatever. I'm just back to the framing of, here is a serious criminal who is finally coming to justice, and let us be in reality and not lose our minds by continuing to treat him like a legitimate political candidate after what he has done.
Couldn't agree more with you. And this just in a statement from Ron DeSantis that came in about 20 minutes or so ago. And we're just getting it right now. So we'll try to pull it up. I'll read for you what Ron DeSantis is saying in this post. He goes, the weaponization of the legal system to advance a political agenda turns the rule of law on its head. It's un-American. The Soros-backed Manhattan District Attorney has consistently bent the law to death felony criminal misconduct, and now he is stretching the law to target a political opponent. Florida will not assist in an extradition request given the questionable circumstances at issue with this Soros-backed Manhattan prosecutor and his political agenda. I mean, he's basically not really saying anything because that doesn't really, matter one way or the other. I mean, if Donald Trump doesn't surrender on his own, there's just going to be more charges, for trying to evade. It'll just be more crimes on top of that. And not only that, but remember this, like, let's just play it out. Like, Donald Trump hides in Florida for, just to say he hides in Florida for the next 60 days. Let's not forget the E. Jean Carroll civil rape and defamation trial set to go April 25th. The district attorney's indictment also tailors with the New York Attorney General. It fits with the New York Attorney General's civil lawsuit seeking at least $250 million in damages. That civil lawsuit by New York Attorney General Letitia James, that's set to go to trial October 2nd of 2023. So you've got two other Trump trials where he has to be present. And if he doesn't show up to the New York Attorney General's lawsuit, he's going to lose billions of dollars if he doesn't show up to New York there. If he doesn't show up to the E. Jean Carroll case and just ditches that trial, he's going to lose big time in that case. And so there really isn't any circumstance where he's not showing up in New York. And we've reported earlier that his TV lawyer, Joe Tacopina, has said that Donald Trump is going to surrender himself. But who knows? I mean, here is someone who's completely lawless, Brett.
Ben. Don't you see that DeSantis statement as the epitome of weakness from Ron DeSantis? I mean, that statement is dripping with fear to me because Ron DeSantis has whiplash from just a few days ago when he was asked that question, what he would do with Donald Trump if Donald Trump got indicted. And Ron DeSantis answered the wrong way for MAGA. He tried to get a ding in at Donald Trump. He said, we're concerned about Florida things here. So, I don't really think about that. I think about the people of Florida. And, by the way, I don't even know anything about hush money from a porn star. I mean, who would know about that? I mean, that's his thing, but not mine. And with that one line, he completely destroyed his shot at winning the MAGA nomination with the MAGA base. And I want to pull up that tweet one more time here because I included the top comment to the tweet in the screenshot on purpose because it's from, I think, somebody who's trying to, I don't even know who this person is, if I'm being honest. They have a blue check mark, which means nothing on Twitter. It says they're running for Florida governor, but it's clearly a MAGA person. And they say, you should have made this. This is a response to DeSantis's tweet. You should have made this announcement 2 weeks ago when Trump went public. Now you are sinking in the polls and have no choice. What a politician. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in the MAGAverse who feel just like that, who feel betrayed by Ron DeSantis. And this is Ron DeSantis's last ditch attempt to go, look, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you. And when you have all these acts of obstruction that we're seeing from people like Kevin McCarthy, from people like Jim Jordan, and remember that weaponization committee, the aptly named weaponization committee, which is actually designed to weaponize the federal government against the citizens of this country, against prosecutors. One of the single most basic reasons why that committee was created was not even to do all the BS that we've seen them do over these past few weeks. That committee was created exactly for this moment right here. And what they plan to do and what they will do is they are going to go on an all-out assault against every prosecutor in the country who is investigating Donald Trump. We see it with the Georgia GOP, what they're trying to do with the Fulton County prosecutor, Fani Willis, and we're going to see this ramped up even more in the GOP-controlled House as they dedicate resources, time, money into trying to interfere unconstitutionally with local and state elections. I think it's about to get really messy in that regard, but guess what? They don't have a leg to stand on. So they could try to do this. They're going to try to create chaos. They're going to try to get the news cycle. But at the end of the day, they don't have jurisdiction over most of these matters. Ultimately, what could happen, just a possibility, is that when they inevitably don't succeed because they can't succeed, it's like Mike Pence on January 6th. Mike Pence had no power to actually do anything, even if he wanted to. But they won't succeed in keeping Donald Trump out of trouble or undoing the indictment or whatever magical things they're going to tell to their base. And that base is going to quickly turn on them as they view them as incapable of protecting Donald Trump. I think you might see that, but you're going to start seeing these other factions form. It's going to get vicious, and it's going to be something to watch. But what you know for sure is that these Republicans, these MAGA Republicans, these Kevin McCarthys, these Marjorie Taylor Greens, these Jim Jordans, the entire Freedom Caucus, what you're going to see is a doubling and a tripling down of their support for Trump, whether it's authentic or inauthentic, and they're going to use the full weight of their offices to try to actually politically persecute and prosecute their political enemies. So something to keep track of.
And Jessica,
Brett,
to your point, Jessica, this shouldn't be political. Like, Donald Trump is committing crimes. Like, it shouldn't be a political position that, as a Democrat, I think that it is outrageous that the other political party sings songs with a terrorist group called the J6 Choir. Right? Like, we should just look at that and go, what the hell is that? That shouldn't be like, oh, Ben, you're a leftist. Like, you're so political that you just want to criticize the J6 Choir with Donald Trump. It's like, what is going on? The MAGA.
I just figured it out. So if Donald Trump goes to jail, he has an automatic position with the J6 Choir. There you go. He's got his future lined up. If he goes to jail or prison, he could always end up as a member.
Such a nice place for Donald Trump.
He could sing songs about January 6th.
It's gonna look real good on him. Absolutely.
His tweets could be scrawled out on paper and in deranged letters. Man, it's the
perfect
place.
Go and talk about building showers. Like, I'd like to build a shower. That sounds fun. I think there's lots of fun stuff for Donald Trump to do in prison.
He could complain about the shower pressure, the toilet flushing.
Yeah, he could maybe even buy some Diet Coke from the commissary.
Exactly.
I think, he doesn't, maybe not the cup of soups, but he can make some trades for some cans of Diet Coke.
But Jessica, they're the ones who are politicizing, right? Things that in the past. I mean, Brett, I want you to talk about this after Jessica. But like, when we look back, Marjorie Taylor Greene wanted to spread all this disinformation about something that she says happened in 11th grade, and we looked at the kind of gun-free school zone legislation that was signed into law by George H.W. Bush, and only one House Republican opposed it. And it was passed by a voice vote in the Senate. Everybody supported this idea that you don't bring guns into school. And so the Democrats haven't changed. Everybody viewed that, hey, let's not have weapons of war in school, and, let's have common sense gun reform then, right? But there was this radicalization, this turning into extremists and becoming, kind of this full-fledged fascistic party. I mean, that's happening from the MAGA Republican side. And, I'm not trying to use hyperbole here. I just don't know how else to describe the conduct of them. Jessica.
No, I think Brett really hit the nail on the head on what this weaponization committee is, on the tactics of the Republicans in power, especially in the House, but really the party writ large, because of their failure to condemn and correct the narrative of their more, vocal clowns. But this is what I always go back to, is why their rhetoric is so dangerous. It's not just that they are calling, criminal justice, the proper unfolding of criminal justice, political when it's not political, but that they literally turn everything on its head. Everything is upside down. Like Brett was saying, this committee about the weaponization of federal government actually is federal government being weaponized. And why it is so dangerous is because to those people who are taking in this gaslighting, taking in this propaganda, they are seeing the world completely inverted. It is what is motivating domestic terrorists, stochastic terrorism, is this perverted vision of an upside down world where who they believe, because they're being lied to by people who are supposed to be leaders, literally walking our halls of the United States Congress, who have sworn an oath to the Constitution, being lied to by these individuals, being told that there is a political persecution going on against someone who is working in their best interest, when that is a complete lie. There is a process of justice going on against someone who has committed crimes even against them. And it's all not only, like Brett said, weaponizing the federal government against the rightful process of justice, but it is inciting terrorism. It is inciting hatred and violence. And to have this on the same week when we have had yet another school shooting, which, by the way, let us not forget, it's almost like we've put school shootings in their own category and we don't even consider them crimes. These are crimes that are being enabled by a party who will not enact sensible legislation to keep weapons of war out of the hands of criminals. That is the party that we're dealing with. So I have no patience. We need to call it out as much as we possibly can. We need to point out how every single thing this Republican Party accuses somebody else of, they are guilty of themselves. It is the most foul, filthy, unchristian manner of behavior from a group that claims to be the upholders of Christianity. Far from it. They embody the Antichrist in this country, and they are causing so much pain and destruction to just to the American conscience. Today, I want to be clear, I got to jump from this soon, but today is a day of healing. This is a day for our country to come together and say, my God, this man who has caused so much destruction, we all remember waking up every day of the Trump administration like, oh my God, what did he do today? It was like we're all recovering still from the trauma of the Trump administration. I experienced things firsthand, but I mean, you can just be a regular American citizen and have experienced daily trauma from the Trump administration and what that man inflicted on the American people and the free world. So this should be like I said last week on Lights On, this should be a coming together of a unifying experience that we are all having as Donald Trump is finally facing justice. I'm going to say something, because these so-called Christians that don't live the lives of Christians in Congress, if they ever decide to pick up that book that they swore an oath to the Constitution on, it talks about hypocrisy. It talks about the woe to them that call evil good and good evil. There is a God. Okay, if they are believing that book, then they believe that there is a God, and that God judges your actions. It judges your conscience. It doesn't judge the lies. It doesn't give you credit for putting on a play in the House of Congress. It knows your heart. God knows your heart. So these people, maybe not the Jim Jordans, maybe not the Lauren Boeberts, but I know there's people in those houses of Congress with a R next to their name that know this is all a bunch of nonsense, that this is damaging to the country, that Donald Trump is a criminal who needs to be prosecuted. I challenge those people who claim to be Christians to search their heart and to think about their role in history, their role in their own families, their role as a man or woman, just their very spiritual identity, and think about whether they are going to be able to answer to their God about their silence or their gaslighting in this moment, and rethink that. Just a thought.
Jessica Denson, I want to thank you. Chiquito jumped on my lap during that break, and Chiquito wants to thank you. You and I will be hosting Lights On Live right here on the MeidasTouch Network tomorrow. We'll be hosting that at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern time. It is an honor to host that show with you. The past few Lights On podcasts that we've done together, we've, I think, gotten more than 200,000 kind of total plays or downloads, which is an incredible for a first show offering. And it's a testament to, frankly, your passion and your fight for our democracy. So Chiquito, myself, and Brett and Jordy want to say something.
Ben, if MeidasTouch viewers will notice, Ben put a suit jacket on.
Well, not only that, yeah.
And he has not taken it off since. Just noted.
This is true.
It is a true story. Jessica said when I host the podcast with her, she says, can you stop wearing those sweatshirts and those T-shirts? Put on a suit jacket. So I put on the suit jacket over my T-shirt, and I was like, you know what? Look. I like this better. So
and the Midas Mighty like it too. Yeah.
Jessica, thank you, and we will see you soon. I'll see you tomorrow on the show. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Lights On. Brett, I know we got some more videos and statements coming in. Let's just pull up this statement. This is from the Central Park 5, the exonerated 5. Donald Trump took out that full-page ad calling for them. They were innocent for the death penalty for them. And that's the Michael Cohen statement. Let's put up the statement from the Central Park 5, and I'll read it. It says, Trump has never apologized for taking out a full-page ad calling for the death penalty for the Central Park 5. New York City Council candidate and exonerated 5-member Yusef Salaam issued the following statement following the indictment of Donald Trump by the Manhattan District Attorney. Karma.
Wow.
Karma. I think just a one-word, very powerful statement right there. And I think we're also, Brett, do we have some of these clips from Fox? Because they're just losing it right now. I think you had Jesse Waters. Do we have the one where Jesse Waters is like talking about Alvin Bragg's weight and saying that he's going to eat or something like that? Do you know the clip?
Yeah,
let's just let's play this clip.
Think it's sticking. And let's say it sticks and they appeal and it's thrown out on appeal. I think actually we see Bragg. He's the big one. Just got into the SUV there. No statement, nothing. He'll probably go home and eat. So this is not.
I mean,
they're such vile, disgusting
people.
Human beings, really vile people. And Jesse Waters is actually one of the most vile people. I don't know if any of our viewers, probably not, but we've been so deep in this. Like if you see some of Jesse Waters' old hits that he used to do on Fox News, also, they're some of the most grotesque, misogynistic, unfunny, just horrific things that you have ever seen in your life. He's just a really horrific, horrible human being. And that wasn't it from them. I mean, you had this one moment where, Jesse Waters was just trying to throw out kind of every possible talking point that he could wrap his mind around. It's like their brains are just misfiring now. They don't know what to do. They've deluded themselves so much that now they're in this place of utter shock, and they are living out their shock live on the air for all to see. So here's another clip of Jesse Waters just moments ago.
You're kind of on the precipice of a little mini recession. The market's a little shaky right now, tons of layoffs. Big spring offensive about to happen in Ukraine. Russia does look like they have momentum there. The Chinese are aligning with our former allies in the Middle East. A lot of people are moving to the yuan. Last week, you have bank records coming out that said that the president lied and his family did get paid millions by Chinese communist spies. All of this is happening. A couple days ago, you had a trans mass shooter. And then all of a sudden, after we heard that the grand jury is going to go home for a month, they dropped this? This seems...
Yeah, well, okay.
Go ahead.
Jesse, when you
Oh, well, thankfully they had renowned expert Janine Pirro on the line to break it down for their viewers. That's who they
what and they like react to their own conspiracy theory that they create. That they were going to go home, things were looking good for Donald Trump, and then this happened. No, you've just been lying to your viewers. And guess what? We have your text messages. We know that behind the scenes, y'all mock your viewers. You call your viewers idiots. You call all of the Republican leadership, you call them morons. You've got Tucker Carlson, saying all these things about Donald Trump and saying how much I absolutely despise that individual. I mean, these are the phoniest bunch of traitors. And when I see them with their shit-eating grin, it is vile behavior. But here's the thing: exhausted majority. We can be exhausted no more. And it's up to each and every one of us. It's up to you watching this to also be the solution. It's great what Alvin Bragg did today. It is great that the Department of Justice and Special Counsel Jack Smith is engaged in serious criminal investigations of serious criminal traitors. It's great the work that Fani Willis is doing. It's great that we have a great President Biden who's an adult in the room. It's great that we have a Democratic-controlled Senate. Those are great things, but we can't look for superheroes to come out of nowhere and help us, right? We have to be the change, and we have to be the ones who share these videos, who share the truth, one person at a time. And there was a reason why this stream was the #1 stream of all news in the world when the news broke that the Manhattan grand jury voted to criminally indict Donald Trump. And the exponential effect that all of you can have if you share this YouTube channel with just one person or 2 people or 4 people or 5 people, friends, neighbors, colleagues, coworkers, anybody you know, and spread the truth and spread the love of our democracy. And here's the thing. We love our country. We love our Constitution. And we don't just do it by holding up the Constitution, or just saying slogans. It's about our conduct. It's about what we do each and every day. Living our lives with humanity, compassion, supporting our democracy, supporting our institutions, obviously standing up to corruption, trying to make things better. Don't let them steal the name Patriot. Right. Don't let them steal the American flag. Don't let them. Don't let them, because they defile our Constitution. They defile our flag. They defile what it means to be a patriot each and every day. Those MAGA Republicans are not conservatives. They're traitors. They're fascists. They're liars. That is who they are. And we've been showing you some photographs that are now being released. You got Alvin Bragg and you've got Donald Trump there. We showed you some photos of Alvin Bragg leaving the Manhattan District Attorney's office. And here at the MeidasTouch Network, we have a data first approach, right? Same thing with the midterms. We weren't just going on with the narrative, red wave, red wave, red wave. No, we said, let's bring on Simon Rosenberg, Tom Bonnier, because guess what? There were 40 million early votes cast. A pretty good data set to analyze, right? A pretty good data set to analyze. Let's follow the data. Same thing here. Let's follow actually what the court filings state. Let's not be gaslit by large media networks who are just pursuing an agenda. And certainly let's not watch these right-wing disinformation chambers. Brett, let me toss it to you.
Yeah, just to add, where the Republican Party and where I'm not even going to just limit this to right-wing news networks, where they kind of thrive and where they are able to stoke kind of fear and anxiety amongst people is when there is a vacuum of information or any sort of uncertainties. And a legal process is naturally full of vacuums of information and uncertainties. You have a grand jury that conducts itself entirely in private. Nobody knows exactly what is going on other than via leaks and whatnot. And then you have a lot of these organizations and the Republican Party and whoever trying to piece the pieces together and doing it in a way, whatever fits their narrative best. And that's just not how we need to be operating here. I mean, everybody who told you this will never happen, Bragg's never going to do it, Bragg must be on the take, lock Bragg up. Like, if you've heard any of these statements, just turn those people off. Right. They're truthfully, they are not worth your time. And then you have the extreme of that, which is Fox. And oh man, like, I'm not going to lie, folks, I'm getting quite a bit of Schadenfreude from watching Fox tonight and these clips come in. But on this clip of Fox, this is also on Jesse Waters' show. He is just bringing the hits tonight. They say that the real crime, folks, the real crime was not what Donald Trump did. The real crime was, in fact, Stormy Daniels breaking her NDA. Let's play the clip.
They're prosecuting Donald Trump for sex. The Democrats are prosecuting Donald Trump.
Sex that he doesn't even admit to.
For sex he denies.
Even admit to. And Jesse, he also paid for an NDA. Everybody seems to forget about this. Stormy Daniels got $130,000 to keep her mouth shut, which is an ironic phrase, of course. But she ended up getting all of that money and telling her story. Nobody's talking about it. And again, to me, 240 years we haven't seen this. I think we're past the statute of...
Yeah,
Come on.
There's absolutely nothing that they're saying that's accurate. No. And they're just saying it. It's just about sex. It's like, what the hell is that? Like just vile creatures. Like, and it's an NDA and she's supposed to keep her mouth shut. It's like, you're just idiots. Like, you are despicable people. Like, those people, stay away from my family. For real, stay the hell away from my family. Would you want people like who you just saw on TV there anywhere near somebody that you love? Those are vile and despicable human beings, right?
Ben, you're so when you watch that, it's like, just ask yourself, would you want these people watching my kids? Would you want these people on the screen right there? Would you want them watching my pets? No, they're lunatics. And that also applies to the entire GOP landscape, from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Jim Jordan to Kevin McCarthy. Like, you wouldn't let these people in your home. Why are we letting them govern? It's absolutely ridiculous. And look, there's going to be a lot of bad takes coming out. And I want our listeners to really listen.
I'm already going to lose my mind over it.
So what you'll hear in the coming days, people will say, hey, you know what this does? This doesn't do it. All this does is let Donald Trump raise millions of dollars. Hey, tell that person, stop it. You're being silly. He was going to do that anyway. Hey, all this does is shore up the nomination for Trump for the GOP. Tell that person, stop it. You're being silly. He was going to do that anyway. What this does is it proves that nobody, no matter who they are, no matter how much money they have, pretend to have, they're not above the law. The law applies to every citizen in this country. Ben.
It's 100% true. And, it extends from these networks and it extends right into the halls of Congress. And, I want to show our Marjorie Taylor Greene fact check from yesterday. Marjorie Taylor Greene out there arguing, that in light of the horrific shooting in Nashville, that there should be more guns in schools. What we need is more guns. And she referenced an incident that happened at her high school when she was in 11th grade, where an armed gunman came in and they had to lock down the school. And she blamed it on the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990, which was signed into law by George H.W. Bush. Now, there are a few problems with her argument, and we outlined this in a quick fact check. And I think these fact checks are important for keeping these folks honest.
A plus fact check.
Thank you. And because when they spread the disinfo, with our network, with the power of our network, with the power of our reach, we are now able to get the facts out quicker than her disinfo was even able to spread on this one. And typically, it's the exact opposite. So here was our fact check of Marjorie Taylor Greene from the hearings about this incident from yesterday.
Will you yield?
Oh, I'll yield. Yes, please.
Yeah, when I was in 11th grade and Joe Biden made our schools gun-free school zones, one of the students in my school brought 3 guns to school, and our entire school went on lockdown because he was the only person with a gun.
Quick fact check. When Marjorie Taylor Greene was at 11th grade, George H.W. Bush was president and signed into law the Gun-Free School Zones Act of 1990. It passed the Senate by a voice vote and the House by a vote of 313 to 1. Just think about the bipartisan consensus on this gun law in 1990. It really shows how radicalized the Republican Party has become. Oh, and not that it needed to be said, but Joe Biden has not, in fact, been president for the past 33 years. Not only that, but Marge is lying about the timeline of events. The incident in her school occurred on September 6th, 1990. The bill was not even introduced until October 27th, 1990, and was signed into law on November 29th, 1990, nearly 3 months later. So yes, Marge is lying again. So there you have Marjorie Taylor Greene blaming Joe Biden for passing a law when he was a senator that led to a shooting in her school, which actually the shooting happened before the law was even passed, so it had no bearing on it whatsoever. I mean, these people will lie about anything. They are the lowest of the low. But I think perhaps what makes these lies that we see from the Republican Party so sinister and so evil is that they are lying. It's what Jessica Denson said. They are lying to cover up the actual crimes that are taking place in America. They are lying to protect their own self-interests and the self-interests of the people who pocket their paychecks than their actual constituents. And they do it in a way by wrapping their arms around the flag, by saying, I'm a patriot, patriot this, MAGA patriot that. And meanwhile, they are picking your pockets. They are letting their billionaire friends pick your pockets. They are flooding your schools with weapons. They are letting your kids get gunned down. These are the results of these Republican policies, and they mask them all in patriotism or religion. This is their playbook, and we all have to be calling it out. Every single one of us here has a megaphone. It's not just us. And so whether you are just sharing that video or making your own content, I hope that we could also inspire you to be the change, to be spreading these messages and getting the truth out there, because there's a reason they do that propaganda. There's a reason they speak about gas stoves. There's a reason they speak about washing machines and Mr. Potato Head, because they know there is at least a small but sizable portion of the population who hangs on their every word, and that stuff works on them. But once again, there are many more of us than there are of them out there. And one of the things that, Jon Stewart had also said during that Fareed Zakaria interview, that I really respected, was Fareed Zakaria also asked Jon Stewart about this, the culture wars. Don't we get trapped with the culture war bait? Don't you think we're talking about the washing machines and the stoves? Don't you think that they're destroying the Democrats on it? And Jon Stewart was just kind of like, what's the evidence that they're winning on these issues? Show me the evidence. They barely won the House. They've lost like every presidential election in recent history. Like it's a false premise. They're not winning. They're winning gerrymandered districts. They're winning select states here and there. On the whole, these Republican policies and this extreme Republican agenda is being repudiated over and over and over and over again. So I just want to call that out with you all. And, there will be plenty more of those Marjorie Taylor Greene fact check, not just her, but she's probably the world's biggest liar next to Trump, giving him a run for his money. But we'll be doing a lot more of those fact check videos, because I think they are super important in getting out the message in bite-sized bits.
Well, now you have all these right-wing extremist fascist maniacs posting, and Donald Trump is reposting them on his social media platform. Here, we posted this. Just look at this like disgusting account, though, again, with the avatar of his face with the American flag on. Just absolutely heinous. And so he's reposting people like Carrie Lake, and she's going, "This is a dark moment in the history of our nation. The radical left and their weaponized criminal justice system have crossed all legal and ethical lines in an attempt to destroy the 45th and 47th president of the United States. It only makes him stronger." I mean, the cult behavior is so weird. And by the way, she's someone who goes out there and still claims that she's the governor of Arizona, right? Like, how strange can you possibly be? This is Steve Scalise. I mean, these are leaders in their party who are more like clownish right-wing fascist influencers than ever should get the title leaders. And he goes, "The sham New York indictment of President Donald Trump is one of the clearest examples of extremist Democrats weaponizing government to attack their political opponents. Outrageous." I mean, just reflect upon it. This would be like when, Nixon was caught, right? If all of the Republicans basically rallied around Nixon and said that, Nixon is right, this is a weaponization. And as you scroll down, you see these ridiculous ads. Free gold bars. Gold bars on mine. It advertises knives because it's either gold
Ben, are you seeing this right now too? So we're hearing that there are 34 counts in the Trump indictment. 34 counts. Ben, what do you make of that, hearing that right now? I'm going to look and I'm going to go to confirm that 34 counts.
Yeah, we're hearing that, and CNN is reporting 34 counts in the Trump indictment. And what that tells me is similar to what some of our early reporting had suggested, is that the underlying conspiracy at issue, right? You have the falsification of business records, which is the misdemeanor, but then you have all of this other unlawful and illegal conduct And to me, it was never just about election interference. That's what we said here on the MeidasTouch Network, because everyone was like, oh, just New York election violations and just New York state election laws. How could you just use that law? And I was like, Donald Trump engages in a lot of crimes, okay? There's a lot of criminal conspiracies that he's engaged in. And when I say why we're a data-first network, because if you just follow what's happening, you can see that 34 counts would not actually be surprising at all, right? I mean, you have the former CEO of the National Enquirer, David Pecker, goes in on Monday, right? And what the reporting suggested there is that one of the things that Alvin Bragg was focused on is this broader scheme that Donald Trump had engaged in leading up to the 2016 election to have this catch and kill scheme with the National Enquirer or whoever to cover up and falsify records to try to, erase his heinous and despicable conduct, right? So there's the McDougal, for example, the McDougal affair that he had where the National Enquirer paid McDougal $130,000. So to me, when I look at that, you're approaching the 2016 election. The National Enquirer for a candidate is paying $130,000 to McDougal to buy her story to cover up the affair. Why would they be doing that? Just out of love, or because they thought there would be a quid pro quo if Donald Trump were to be elected? So to me, that's why that's kind of obviously like that $130,000, that sounds like an illegal campaign donation, right? Which isn't reported if you were to engage in that type of payment as a service to Donald Trump. Oh, and by the way, they prepared fake invoices for services rendered regarding the $130,000 to Michael Cohen. Here we now have the statement attributable to a spokesperson in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. And here's what it says. This is breaking right now over the wire. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office spokesperson is saying the following. This evening, we contacted Mr. Trump's attorney to coordinate his surrender to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for arraignment on a Supreme Court indictment, which remains under seal. Guidance will be provided with the arraignment when the arraignment date is selected. Let me just read that one more time, because that is one of the most powerful historical statements, right, in the history of our country. A statement attributable to a spokesperson at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Quote, this evening, we contacted Mr. Trump's attorney to coordinate his surrender to the Manhattan DA's office for arraignment on a Supreme Court indictment, which remains under seal. Guidance will be provided when the arraignment date is selected. That is exactly what Karen Friedman Agnifilo told us the process and procedure would be when she was on to lead our coverage this evening. When they talk about the Supreme Court, just to let you know about New York procedure, Supreme Court in New York is not their highest court. The Supreme Court is actually their trial court. That would be like the main criminal court. The main civil court where trials take place is called the Supreme Court. Then you have appellate divisions. Then their Supreme Court in New York is called the Court of Appeals. I think they do that just to confuse everyone. But when they're referring to the Supreme Court, that is the case where the trial actually would be held. That's their trial court level. So what they're saying is Donald Trump doesn't even know necessarily. He doesn't know what the counts are because it is under seal. When Donald Trump surrenders, he will then learn. That's how the process happens, as Karen Friedman Agnifilo explained. Then Donald Trump will learn the specific counts that he is being charged with concurrent with his surrendering. And then he will be booked. He will be, arrested. He will have his mugshot taken, and he will be treated like the criminal that he is, and he will go through the process that other individuals who are criminally charged go through. That is the process that will take place. But what a historic statement. Now, going back to, let me pause there. I mean, we got to take that in. I can't just skip that. So Brett and Jordy, as you see that statement, it doesn't get more real than the spokesperson from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office confirming.
I kind of love that it was a spokesperson too. It's just like, you know what, like my spokesperson will deal with this. He'll speak for the office. Like you're not even worth my time right now, Donald Trump. Get ready. And, we're at a point right now where Donald Trump is now, continuing to post his deranged posts. And he should know, even though he has not been read his Miranda rights at this stage, that Donald Trump does have the right to remain silent. Thankfully for us, he lacks the ability to remain silent, which will only work against him in this case. It's really just a historic moment. I think we all have to kind of just sit back, for a second and really take it in. And as we take it in, I think things are starting to get really real, as Jordy said, for Donald Trump, for the family. I think they're going from shock and awe to just not even knowing what to do. We're seeing a comment right now from Donald Trump Jr. Freaking out, saying, "We all know," this is a tweet, "we all know that the rhinos are secretly happy about the indictment." Well, everyone who doesn't like Trump is a rhino at this stage. So yes, but the fascist left won't stop with Trump. They're power hungry and will do anything to crush their political opponents. If we're ever going to save our country, the entire GOP needs to finally figure that out. Once again, just such incredible projection from Don Jr., from the Trump family at large, from all these people in the Republican Party who try to act like this is at all politically motivated. Remember, Alvin Bragg did not do this. A grand jury of regular New Yorkers voted this. They saw the evidence. They're the only ones who saw all the evidence, and they made their decision and they voted based on that. So they could do their anti-Semitic attacks. They could blame the Jews like they like to do. It's George Soros's fault. They could do racist attacks against Alvin Bragg all they want. A jury, almost 24 jurors, saw the evidence. They made their decision, and this is the result. And now Donald Trump needs to live with the consequences. He may be the first former president in history to be indicted, but this is only the first indictment for Donald Trump of many, and we are going to see more. So I just hope the folks also out there who kept saying, and I understand, I'm not going to knock you, but all the people who said, believe it when I see it, believe it when I see it, believe it when I see it, it's never going to happen, it's never going to happen. As we now navigate along the way from this indictment to any superseding indictments after this, to Georgia, to the federal cases against Donald Trump that are being overseen by Jack Smith, I hope now that we all kind of are getting a taste and a lesson in the process of what's going on and how these things might not always work on our timeline, but that they do work, that justice truly does matter at the end of the day. And I want
let's talk about timeline.
I just want to say this real quick. These statements that we see from the family, from these MAGA fascist influencers, because that's what this whole right-wing echo chamber has become, they're only going to get more deranged. They just will. They'll all look to one up each other's most deranged statement. It's going to be complete lunacy in the coming days. So please subscribe right now to the MeidasTouch channel, because we're here to navigate through all this craziness, because the legacy media is going to treat this as they always treat things, like, oh, but the left said this and the right said this. It's not where we are. And that's why so many people come to the stream and watch and join on with the network and join the community, because they're pissed at being gaslit, and they just want to know the facts of what's happening. And that's why it's amazing that we've had Karen on here to be able to just lay out the evidence and the data and just to point people into the direction of what the tea leaves were saying.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We're not funded by any outside investors.
No.
I think that's important for people to know. So if you want to help support this network, one of the ways you do that is by going to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We have exclusive memberships there. And one of the membership tiers there, that you become an honorary producer of this show, and your name appears on these historic broadcasts, each and every broadcast. When you join one of those membership tiers, there's a specific tier that is the honorary producer tier. Your name will appear here on these broadcasts that we do on all of these podcasts. But there's a number of other Patreon memberships membership tiers that you can join, and you can meet me and my brothers once a month. We hold these Zoom chats and we answer everybody's question. And so that's patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and check that out right there. In terms of all of the cases that Donald Trump now is going to be dealing with, in addition to this criminal indictment, right? Next month, he has the E. Jean Carroll civil rape and defamation trial. That's set to go to trial in federal court on April 25th. The federal judge, Judge Kaplan, ordered an anonymous jury there based on Donald Trump's threats directed at judges and prosecutors and lawyers and jurors. So that's going to trial. Donald Trump is going to testify there. That's not going to be delayed. That's going to trial. Then October 3rd, 2023, you have New York Attorney General Letitia James' civil fraud lawsuit, which is seeking at least $250 million in damages against Donald Trump, his adult children, and the Trump Organization, likely in the billions of dollars. It also seeks an injunction which would stop Donald Trump and his adult children from conducting business in the state of New York, effectively shutting down the Trump Organization. That's set to go to trial. And the judge has said, it's Judge Arthur Engoron in, we'll test our knowledge, New York Supreme Court, because that's the trial court, who said it is etched in stone. Come hell or high water, we are going to trial the first week of October 2023. Donald Trump tried to continue that case by 6 months. So those two trials are set to go within the next 9 months. You'll have both of those two trials. You have special counsel Jack Smith continuing his criminal investigation at the federal level. We've got two grand juries, at least two grand juries, criminally investigating Donald Trump that special counsel Jack Smith is providing evidence before. One investigating criminal election interference, the other obstruction of justice and Donald Trump's theft of thousands of government records, including top secret and classified records, his concealment, mutilation, and obstruction of justice there. And Jack Smith has recently got critical wins, overcoming Donald Trump's executive privilege objections, defeating former Vice President Pence's objections under the speech and debate clause, where Pence was trying to claim he should be treated as a senator and his conduct was legitimate legislative activity. So that moves on. Then you go south, you've got Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney's criminal investigation there. We have the special grand jury, which already prepared a report, which likely includes the recommendation of Donald Trump to be criminally indicted. Next, a grand jury there would have to criminally indict there for election interference, the same way that there was a grand jury that criminally indicted Donald Trump in New York, right? So special counsel Jack Smith, you got the Manhattan District Attorney, you got Fulton County, you got the New York Attorney General, you got E. Jean Carroll. You also have criminal investigations out of the Southern District of New York for potential crimes and money laundering through Trump media there. And there's two different criminal investigations at a federal court, SDNY, for potential criminal conduct by Trump media. And that's only the Cliff Note version of all of the cases that Donald Trump is involved in. We now have Karen Friedman-Agnifilo back with us, and Karen Friedman-Agnifilo has some updates that we're going to share with everybody here. And some new important updates that Karen Friedman-Agnifilo is getting. Everybody remember, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo used to be the number 2 deputy in the entire Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and she served as the acting Manhattan District Attorney. You don't have someone with more knowledge about the inner workings of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office than Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. So I can't wait to share with you. She's going to come right on right now. But first, we got to hit this quick message.
And now let's take a quick break to talk about our next partner, Hold On. Plastic. It's everywhere. It's everywhere we look, and not enough is being done about it. 100 billion plastic bags are used and then thrown away every year. Yeah, that plastic bag you see in the gutter or floating in a stream or washed up on the beach, multiply that by 100 billion. Yikes. Am I right? But there's a better way, and it could start with a better bag. Hold On is a company born from the idea that there must be a better way to go about our daily chores. Now, trash bags and kitchen bags, they're necessary staples, But do they need to be 100% plastic? 100% no! Hold On trash and kitchen bags are heavy-duty, plant-based, non-toxic, and 100% home compostable, which means they break down in weeks, not decades, without filling up our landfills or polluting our oceans. Hold On wants to be part of the growing movement away from single-use plastics, which, if you ask most experts, is the single worst kind of plastic. At every stage, production, disposal, decomposition, plastic bags are doing harm to our earth, our water, and even our bodies. Hold On is absolutely amazing. 1, they're a woman-owned, woman-founded company. 2, the Hold On bags are incredibly durable and sleek. It's so good to know that what I'm using is plant-based, non-toxic, and 100% home compostable. To shop plant-based bags and replace single-use plastics all over your home, visit holdonbags.com/Meidas or enter Meidas at checkout to save 20% off your order. Sustainability has never been more simple. That's HOLDON bags.com/Meidas, MEIDAS, or enter Meidas to receive 20% off your order. Small things can lead to lasting change if we stop and say, hold on. Thank you, Hold On, for sponsoring this episode.
We got Karen Friedman-Agnifilo here in the car with breaking news updates. This is how we do it here in the MeidasTouch Network. I prefer it be done this way so we can just get you the information. Karen, what are you hearing?
So what I've learned is that this is a 34 count indictment, and that it's mostly, if not all, falsifying business records charges as we anticipated. Now, what we don't know is, does it include both the, it's an election interference theory, right? That he interfered with the election in 2016 the first time, right? He was trying to interfere with the presidential election, and how do we the thing Donald Trump operates is and statement that he released recently in the last few minutes says this is the biggest case of election interference in the history of this country. And so, that's how because unfortunately, since this is a sealed indictment, we don't know, we can't see what it says yet. So until we see it, until we know what it says, he's going to go out on offense and try to turn this into, no, you're the election interferer, not me. It's whatever, I'm rubber and you're glue kind of thing, right? I mean, that's just who he is. He's like a child. Anyway, so this is going to be an election interference case. So remember, there were 11 different payments made regarding false business records. And we've always said that we anticipate at least 11 charges, one for each business entry record, where he says this is a legal retainer when there was no legal retainer. We always thought each time that there was a false business record, it would be its own charge. So, and the fact that there's 11 of them, 11 times 3 is 33, we always said there would be multiple charges per entry or per payment, because under different theories, right? One could be under tax theory, one could be under election interference theory, because don't forget, what makes this a felony is if you are intending to conceal a crime when you make that false business entry. And so it makes sense, in my mind, and this is pure guesswork, just guess, but we'll see when we see the indictment, is 11 different payments, and they're going to have multiple charges, like say 3 charges per payment, which is 33, and then 1 charge of conspiracy, right? And the conspiracy is an important charge, not because it's a serious charge or a high charge. In fact, I think it's even a misdemeanor here, but what the conspiracy gives you, if it's in the indictment, is it gives you the ability to give what's called a talking indictment or a speaking indictment. Indictments are usually just bare bones, and what it says is on or about, March 31st, 2016, the defendant in the county of New York did X, and that's it, right? It's very bare bones. It just gives the legal language, and it doesn't give a description of what happened. But in this case, I think it's going to be very important, because there's so much scrutiny on this case, and because the American people here want to know what this case is about and want to say that it's, they're trying to say, oh, this is just Michael Cohen. This is the word of Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen's been convicted of lying. I think there's going to be a lot of evidence in this case and a lot of corroboration and witnesses we don't even know about yet. And so what the talking indictment or the speaking indictment is going to do, it's going to allow Alvin Bragg to talk about the conspiracy. It's going to talk about who the conspiracy was with. Was it with Michael Cohen? Was it with David Pecker? Was it with other people that we aren't even aware of? And a conspiracy charge has overt acts, right? So those are all the acts in furtherance of the conspiracy, and all those acts, those will be the facts of the case. On this date, he did this. On this date, he did that. On this date, he tried to interfere with the election when he did X, Y, and Z. On this date, he also tried to interfere with the election. We know he knew about it with, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels and all of the different things that Alvin Bragg is going to want to be sure that he can get into evidence, and that a defense attorney can't make a motion in limine and say, I want to keep this evidence out. It's not part of the charge. You're going to want to get everything in there. And so I think Alvin Bragg is going to potentially charge in conspiracy with overt acts that talk about all the different pieces of evidence he's going to want to make sure he can bring in at trial. So the only thing the only thing I know for sure is that this is a 34 count indictment. I think I got that on very, very good source. But the other stuff is just me surmising and reading tea leaves and saying what I think is possible. But until we see the actual indictment, we won't know. So that's the breaking news. The other thing that we learned tonight is that Donald Trump doesn't even know. He was told that he was indicted. He has not seen a copy of the indictment, which is normal, and he's being treated like every other defendant, and that he was taken by surprise. He did not have warning. He did not know about this, and that he was taken by surprise. So those are a couple of new facts that have come out. The other thing that has come out since I was on before, and maybe you guys talked about this already, is several governors have said they will not extradite him if he decides to not come voluntarily. So he's either going to voluntarily surrender, which he should, or what has to happen is the governor of New York has to apply for essentially an arrest warrant and ask Governor DeSantis if he's willing to sign that and extradite him the way they do anytime the whole country, every state has extradition treaties with each other for this reason. And it's the interstate agreement on detainers. And this is how all states deal with the fact that, if you commit a murder in one state and you flee to another state, you can get arrested in that state. And if you don't waive extradition, then the governor of one state has to request the governor of the other state, who then will transport you after a hearing. And so this is a common mechanism. Well, Governor DeSantis has already come out and said he will not cooperate in extraditing Donald Trump if it comes to that. And okay, that is sort of a big deal. It's highly unusual. But then Donald Trump is going to be landlocked, because the minute he goes to another state, unless that same governor also disagrees and won't do it, then, won't extradite him, then he's stuck. So it'll be interesting to see which governors come out and which ones don't, and whether Donald Trump only spends time in red states and doesn't go to any blue states because he could get arrested there and extradited. So we'll see. He's saying that he thinks he's going to be arraigned sometime next week while they make security arrangements. We've also seen increased security around the courthouse and around the DA's office and around Alvin Bragg himself. And so, that's where we are now. I think it's really important because he's coming out and saying that this is election interference. I think it's very important that when we talk about this, we frame it as what it is. It's not a hush money porn star case. It's an election interference case where a sitting president 11 times committed a crime by falsifying business records in the Oval Office. And that's significant. That's serious. And it's certainly worth bringing. So that's what I have for all of you.
Well, we appreciate the update, Karen. And look, Donald Trump, let's all remember, is a civil defendant in the civil rape and defamation trial by E. Jean Carroll, which is set to go to trial April 25th as a party. He's going to be under subpoena to have to show up there. He's then also a defendant in New York Attorney General Letitia James' case as well, October 2nd of 2023, where his entire business is on the line. And so if his plan is to hide like the coward that he is in Florida, it also has those ramifications on his money as well. But it does speak to also the complete and utter lawlessness, the lack of respect for law and order of people like Ron DeSantis, who are just full-fledged fascists, and there's no other way to talk about it. Karen, I know you have to go. Final words before we thank you for your time.
Yeah, so I think it's really important that that's a point that you bring up, is the civil rape case. In less than a month, he's going to be on trial for rape. Okay, call it civil rape, criminal rape. The only difference there is the punishment. He's on trial for rape. And that is a big deal. And I think more people have to also be talking about that we are going to have a former president on trial for rape. And the reason it's a civil rape, or it's a rape case, is although it happened in the 70s, there's something called the Adult Survivors Justice Act, which is a 1-year look back that New York recently passed, that from November of 2022 to November of 2023, no matter when a sexual assault occurred, you have 1 year to, if the statute of limitations has run, to bring that case. And so that's what's happening right now is a rape trial. So that'll I think be very interesting, and he's got a lot going on, and a few more arrests that I think are going to be happening in short order. So thanks for having me.
Karen, thank you so much for your time. Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, co-host of Legal AF. We so appreciate your time. Karen used to basically run the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for 30 years, and she was the number 2 deputy there in the entire Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Just one point of clarification, the civil rape allegation by E. Jean Carroll, she alleged it occurred in 95 or perhaps 1996 at the Bergdorf Goodman, and the Adult Survivors Statute in New York gives this 1-year look back period for survivors of sexual assault to bring their claims. Thank you very much, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. And so here we are at the MeidasTouch podcast on this incredibly historic day. The Manhattan grand jury has voted to criminally indict Donald Trump, the first time in American history where a former president, or even though he disgraced that title, was indicted criminally and criminally charged. There has been confirmation, of course, by a spokesperson from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, who confirmed in a very short statement. Donald Trump and all of the MAGA Republican cult followers have all put out various statements as well. Michael Cohen has put out a statement as well, basically saying that this is the process of justice, and due process will now take its course. The MAGA cult followers all putting out really weird statements. Lauren Boebert just posting photographs of herself with Donald Trump. "We got your back, Mr. President." Like, he's not the president. You don't get stranger than that. And we've been going through here on this broadcast the various statements that have been made by Fox, and everything from the Juvenile, where people like Jesse Waters are calling Alvin Bragg fat, and they think that that's an approach that makes sense. It's just Juvenile, and I guess it's what's come to be expected from the MAGA Republicans. And I don't know if we have this clip, though. This is just from the Tucker show. And this is Tucker saying that this is going to be much greater than anything we saw on January 6th, a direct call to violent thug fascists in this country to commit another horrendous act. I mean, Tucker Carlson should go to jail. Like, let's be clear. Tucker Carlson is one of the biggest traitors in the history of our country. Here, let's play this clip from his broadcast.
And no matter what your politics, that's exactly right. If you believe in our system and you want it to continue, you have to raise your hand and say stop. because this is too great an assault on our system, much greater than anything we saw on January 6th, that's for certain. So that raises...
Knows exactly what they are doing there. And then you go to Trump's social media page and you see all the statements flooding in from these cultists, right? Remember, there was once a time, right, when there was objective truths and criminal conduct would be condemned on a bipartisan basis. I mean, let's talk about this is Donald Trump's, it is his falsification of business records in connection with a sexual encounter he had with a porn star and then paid the porn star off $130,000. He continually degrades her and calls her horse face. And you have MAGA Republicans, a political party, running to Donald Trump's side. And that is unforgivable, would be putting it as a understatement. And it should not be political for me to condemn the utterly disgusting and depraved behavior of Donald Trump, his attempt to overthrow our democracy, his spreading of conspiracy theories to undermine a free and fair election. Here, we will pull up this post by Donald Trump here. Just, they keep coming in. He goes, they only brought this fake, corrupt, and disgraceful charge against me because I stand with the American people, and they know that. I cannot get a fair trial in New York. Let's bring in our next guest and MeidasTouch contributor, Dina Dahl, to the show. Dina, want to welcome you to the MeidasTouch podcast. And I want to talk about this post that Donald Trump just made moments ago before you just joined us, already basically setting up the loss, right? Already setting up the conspiracy, saying they only brought this fake, corrupt, and disgraceful charge against me because I stand with the American people, and they know that I cannot get a fair trial in New York, right? He's saying, I'm going to lose, and then blame it on New York. That's where he's going with this. As a lawyer, what do you think about this?
I mean, first, it's typical for him, right? He's always the victim. But as always, he always has a little bit of a kernel of truth. And here's the thing. It's all about the jury. He's going to ask for a jury trial, right? He has a constitutional right to it. He doesn't have to have a jury trial. He could ask for a judge trial, but we know him, where he's going to ask for a jury trial. And then the question is going to become, will there be 12 people who are willing to convict him? So his tweet is already saying, New York, they're too liberal. They're not going to be willing to acquit me. He's already gone straight to the issue, because although the indictment is historic and amazing and exactly how it should be, because nobody is above the law, an indictment and a conviction are very, very far apart, especially in a situation like this. Will there be 12 jurors? I mean, even if they're Democrat, will there be 12 jurors willing to convict a former president? That's a really tough question. I mean, I'm a trial watcher. That's what I do. I analyze trials all the time. And it's really tricky in situations where there is somebody in a small town, let's say, and they're up for a crime, and everybody knows that family. Look at the Murdoch trial. Everybody knew that family. They knew him before the murders, and they know him after. That jury is going to look at that crime differently than 12 people who had never known the person at all. So there's impossible for him not to have 12 people who have some sort of opinion on him. Now, it's okay for people to have heard about this case, by the way. Jurors are allowed to have heard the case, details of the case. They are just asked by the judge, are you willing to put aside any opinion you may have formed by the news to be able to decide the case based on the facts that you hear? Now, they are going to have a massive jury pool in this case. I mean, Harvey Weinstein was also, went to trial in New York. That was a huge case at the time. They had a huge jury pool. So in situations like this, he's not the first well-known person to be in a criminal trial. We know how to handle it. How you handle it is have a really large jury pool in order to weed out both sides, to weed out jurors for all sorts of reasons, including, and probably most importantly here, will they be willing to set aside the opinion? I think that's going to be really tricky. Are you going to get somebody who's maybe pro-Trump, who's going to say, yeah, I could set aside the opinion, and that one juror can be the holdout and make him acquit? Both sides are going to have to do such a good job in what we call the, voir dire, the jury questioning, in order to get 12 people who are really going to look at the case as is and not have somebody who is going to, be a holdout and want to be on this trial because they want to acquit Donald Trump. I think that's should be a real fear of the DA. And it's going to take like really sophisticated questioning on their part in order to weed people like that out.
No, I think sorry, Brett.
I was going to say my question to the attorneys out here is when you talk about the jury and you speak about how difficult it is to find a jury, where my mind immediately went was to the civil case against the Trump organization, and in that case, as we saw, what was that?
Criminal case.
The criminal case against the Trump organization. As we saw how the jurors felt about Donald Trump in that case, as we saw how they felt about Donald Trump's attorneys, from all that we read, from all that was reported, utter disgust of Donald Trump and of the tactics that Donald Trump tried. So in a way, I wonder if Alvin Bragg almost watched that, almost let that go as a trial run, so to speak, as he built this case, going after Donald Trump himself. And I wonder if you think at all that case could be at all reflected. And obviously that he got a conviction on what, guys? It was 17?
17 counts in about 9 hours. So it was about boom, boom, boom. You don't get quicker than that. I love Dina's view, and then I could share for you what my thought is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would have made a lot of sense if he had used that, because we know that prosecutors don't want to ever lose, right? I mean, if you've ever met a prosecutor, the first thing they'll say is their record. They want to be undefeated, or they want to not lose many cases. So I do think he probably thought that the atmosphere was at least, viable for him to get a conviction. And it's true, because we know that because the indictment came out. These were regular Americans who voted to indict. And that is a good kind of barometer for the DA, because he was able to get a majority to vote. And so, that's some good news. We don't know the exact count. That would be more revealing. Was it unanimous? How close was it? But that at least is helpful for him to think that he could potentially get a jury pool who would be willing to convict Donald Trump.
And I agree. And Brett, to your point, I think that was exactly Alvin Bragg's strategy. I think rather than try to hit the grand slam from the outset, which would frankly be the financial frauds, the 10 years of defrauding tax authorities, right? That's the one where you had Carrie Dunn and Mark Pomerantz on, and Alvin Bragg did not want to pursue that one first. What I had always been arguing here is that I just thought it was more of a timing thing, and so first go after the Trump organization where the stakes are a little bit less high, just because the New York legislature has a law that says the max fine is like $1.6 million. A corporate defendant doesn't get to go to jail, but you got Alan Weisselberg to go to Rikers for not an insignificant period of time, but not a significant period of time. So you got the CFO to plead guilty. You got your first win against the Trump organization, and then you kind of climb the ladder and you learn a lot from that. You speak to the jury after, in many ways as a trial lawyer, seeing that's almost like getting like a a jury before the trial that you call in to kind of do a trial run of the trial before it takes place, to get a sense of how different jury pools would react in terms of what your presentation is. So you saw how a jury reacts to Trump and Trump's lawyers, and the overwhelming statement that came out of that trial against the Trump organization was, why isn't Donald Trump here? We wanted to criminally, convict him because he was clearly inextricably intertwined in this. So then if I'm Bragg, you then go up one level. You still don't go to the financial crimes case yet, the big one about Donald Trump, fraudulently making fake valuations relative to the appraisals and gaming all these tax authorities and engaging in all this criminal tax fraud cases. Let's go do this next one, which is a discrete act. Let's focus on the hush money payments, right? Let's focus on the fraudulent financial documents there. And look, when you put this case in front of a jury, right, what are they going to hear about? They're going to hear leading up to the election, while Donald Trump's wife just gave birth to their first kid together. He had sex with a porn star. Donald Trump's defense is going to make him look even more of a liar by claiming he never had an affair or didn't have sex and repeatedly calling her horseface. By the way, you better believe the district attorney is going to show all of those posts where he calls her horseface. Let's think about any juror's reaction to that. Him calling a woman like that a horseface repeatedly is like a disgusting thing to do, and saying no affair. And they clearly had a sexual relationship. And then you talk about Donald Trump's other sexual relationships that he tried covering up with catch and kill schemes with the National Enquirer. I think by the end of opening statements, if a jury doesn't vomit, I would be surprised with that. And then you prosecute that case. By the way, with this being a felony, and that's what we all believe it's charged as, and we all believe there to be 34 counts now, Donald Trump could serve about 4 years in prison. He'd probably do less than that if he's ultimately convicted, but that's real jail time, though, at stake here. Meanwhile, what's going on in the background? New York Attorney General Letitia James, she's been pursuing the civil fraud case based on Donald Trump's financial fraud, right? That goes to trial in September. The statute of limitations on that isn't going to run anytime soon because Trump's been engaged in an ongoing scheme. So now Alvin Bragg gets to watch what goes on there, see the discovery process there, and then as he climbs the ladder, I think we'll either see a superseding indictment, although if you can't do a superseding indictment on this one, a whole new indictment. I think there could be another grand jury on the financial fraud claims. I just think that Alvin Bragg, as a tactician, as a strategist, being patient, which frustrated a lot of people, though, wanted to line this up in a very organized way versus, to your point, Dina, if you just went with the grand slam case and then you put that in front of a jury and you didn't climb it methodically, the issues that you raise become realities. But I think that's how he tried to factor in exactly what you said, to do this methodically. And for all the people who were out there, and pretty much rallied on by large media networks that were feeding false narratives, I think you want methodical and careful versus just taking, big swings. That's my own view. What's your view, Dina?
I mean, I agree. I think from a legal strategy, that made so much sense. Politically, I think it kind of hurts because now he's an announced candidate. If they had done this a year ago, they couldn't use this argument, which we're already hearing from the GOP, that they're just, now this is an attack on somebody who wants to become president, and this is about not making him president. Whereas if he had done this, this, I think, should have been done a long time ago. This happened before he even became president. There's plenty of time to do this. I think you're right that hopefully his kind of methodical approach will at least garner a conviction. But now it becomes so much more political since he's announced his candidacy. And for that, it is disappointing.
I want to read this statement from Donald Trump's lawyer who lost the case, and the jury said they absolutely hated her presentation. Susan, I don't want to butcher her last name, but I'll just say Susan Nichols. I
think it's
apologize.
Nailed it, big bro. Nailed it. All four variations. Perfect. Swoosh.
Trump attorney Suni Nicholas says that I'm bad at names. I'm like last names.
Here's the thing: you're bad at like
names,
semi easy names.
All right,
I've said her name.
Get into the statement. Get into the
Thanks, Brett. Okay. Trump attorney Susan Nicholas says that former President Trump is expected to be arraigned on Tuesday. So for those, wondering whether or not, the Trump DeSantis, he's going to just hide in Florida, with DeSantis, that's not going to happen. And one of the reasons I thought that's not going to happen, Dina, is because Trump has a lot of other legal trouble that comes up in the next few months, right? He's got the E. Jean Carroll civil rape and defamation case that's set to go to trial April 25th. So he has to be in New York, or else he's going to lose millions of dollars just by not showing up. So, his money is the most important thing to him. So he has to show up in New York at some point. And then October 2nd, you have New York Attorney General Letitia James civil fraud lawsuit. So he's going to have to show up again there. If he ever wants to go to Bedminster and play, golf, he's going to have to leave Florida at some point. And there's going to be governors who aren't lawless, and the moment he's there would extradite him. And so what do you make of what can we expect to see on Tuesday?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think to your point, it would be smart since he has to go there anyway. But he's loving DeSantis coming out and saying he's not going to extradite him. And I kind of hope my wish is that the two of them kind of like fight each other to the end. And so I'm hoping this doesn't create some sort of alliance between the two, because DeSantis is not done. He probably also realizes that Trump is going to show up in New York for the civil suit. And he threw that out there. I think it would create some sort of like constitutional crisis, actually, if he really did refuse to extradite him, because there has to be some way of kind of forcing one state to do it. I don't know. That would definitely be like a first impression issue, but I don't think that would be the end of it. I don't think it would be, okay, DeSantis doesn't allow it, we're just, going to wait. There might be some other officer there who would be willing to do it. And then whether or not that officer had authority, I could see this getting really interesting. And not being a complete dead end if DeSantis didn't do it. But I think you're right. He's going to show up at the civil suit. The money is the big thing. And he's going to say that he is not afraid and that he's, wants, to fight this. And most people always say that they want their day in court. And he's going to have some variation of that, I think.
And Dean, I think you raise a great point there with DeSantis, because as part of this whole process, DeSantis basically demonstrated, like, when you are in the cult, right? If you live in North Korea, Kim Jong-un is not going to lose the election to Kim Jong-un's lieutenant, right? Like, DeSantis is part of the MAGA cult. He's not going to lose to the cult leader, Donald Trump, and he can't even say anything bad about the cult leader. So it's a really good point you raise, because what it seems like DeSantis knew Donald Trump was going to go to New York anyway. So it's just basically a way to kind of tap out, right? Yep. To basically be like, you're my boss. You're my boss. You own me, Donald Trump. And I could go on more about those analogies, but I will keep it there. Dina Dahl, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you more here on the MeidasTouch Network. Thank you so much, Dina Dahl. Everybody, a great panel of guests here.
What a show today! What a show! Hey Ben, superstar panel. Ben, let me get this in real quick on the DeSantis thing. Brett, that when we read that post, whenever we read it. Man, just ultimate like McCarthy coward vibes to me when you're reading that DeSantis statement on how he's not going to extradite Trump. To Dina and Ben, your point here, I think DeSantis already knows. Hey, it's not going to come down to me. I don't have to be the decision maker. I saw what happened, DeSantis. I saw what happened when I went against Trump a little bit and how that played to the MAGA base and how I was almost an outcast. So let me try and split the difference here now and act like I'm defending the guy. Yeah, that's my strategy here as DeSantis. But ultimately, all it shows is, once again, Ron DeSantis is one of the single biggest cowards in government. I mean, how pathetic. He had actually a moment here too to show some courage, but instead of that, because we all know he's courageless, he's a coward, he's going to always back down to Trump. And so that ultimately, and the MAGA base, and that's ultimately what we see from that statement. I mean, you don't get more pathetic than that DeSantis statement.
Jordy, it's the catch 45, as I say. It's not a catch 22. It's the catch 45. You act surprised every time I say it. I've said it a bunch of times.
Ooh, good. Well, hey, I like to make.
I like the hype though. I love that you are my hype.
Wait, say it again.
It's Jordy. Like, I'm just thinking right now, it's kind of like a catch 45.
Ooh, good one, Brad.
So I mean, DeSantis has nowhere to go. DeSantis has boxed himself in because, like you said, Jordy, you were 100% spot on. He has boxed himself in with the cult, and this is a guy who wants to run for president, who needs to be his own independent person if he ever wants to have a chance of winning the Republican nomination. But at the same time, he cannot win the nomination at all if he is not completely subservient to Donald Trump. And you cannot do those two things at the same time. You cannot be your own man, your own candidate, and simultaneously be subservient to Donald Trump every step of the way. And when you give Donald Trump that power over you, you are basically just admitting, oh yeah, he's the leader of the party. I'm just some whatever loser over here. Okay. And that's what DeSantis with this statement. That's why I read DeSantis' statement as just incredibly weak, just very, very, very very weak. And all these Republicans, I mean, you know, it's just, you go through the litany of responses that we have seen tonight. And as we said, they are just bending over backwards in just a very bizarre, cultish, weird manner. And the House Judiciary GOP run by Jim Jordan, we touched on some of their comments earlier, but it just keeps getting weirder and weirder, everybody. I mean, here's the House GOP's latest post. They put this out. He never backed down for you. And underneath that post, they have an ominous video of Donald Trump with music, walking in silhouettes, like one of these Trump style campaign videos that is actually from the Donald Trump White House account, the archived White House account. Just very, very peculiar.
This is Jim Jordan, yeah? This is Jim Jordan rage tweeting?
Yeah, this is utterly, utterly bizarre.
You know, I'd say it doesn't get weirder than Jim Jordan, but it does for the GOP. I mean, just a class of their own, just deranged lunatics. And like we said before, the statements that we're going to see come out, they're going to keep trying to one-up each other. So it's just going to get more and more unhinged. Subscribe right now to the MeidasTouch Network right here on YouTube. It's free. Go ahead and do it. And we're here to just be here with you along this process. It's been a wild ride. It's a wild day. It's going to be another wild couple days, weeks, months, all leading up to the next election. So make sure you're here with us every step of the way.
Absolutely. Well said, Jordy. And, this is a moment where, like Karen Friedman-Agnifilo said on the show, we need to stand our ground for the rule of law here. You have a House committee. Just think about that. Being as lawless, as fascist, as craven and opportunistic as them. It's absolutely disgusting to see. The sheer projection from people like Don Jr., who are going, this is political, and look, they're coming for you next because it's all political. They're going to come after the rest of their political enemies. Don Jr.'s dad led a rally the other day around the theme of retribution against his political enemies. That was the theme, retribution. He did another rally where he put his hand over his heart and saluted not to the national anthem of the United States of America, didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance. He pledged allegiance to the January 6th terrorists with the January 6th choir theme song. These are the people that we're dealing with. This is really lawless stuff. And everything that they try to accuse the other side of is exactly the behavior that they engage in. So like Jordy said earlier also, look out, because the gaslighting is going to be turned up to 11. It's going to keep happening. They're going to get more and more and more deranged, but that's why it's so important that you're here to continue to push back. It looks like we're getting some more commentary in from Donald Trump, which we will pose, though. Here it is. Donald Trump, these corrupt Democrat prosecutors, all from poorly run and very dangerous Democrat-run cities, are not going to choose the Republican nominee or the next president of the United States. Once again, trying to make this about that this is election interference. You know, it's ironic because he's made kind of both arguments here, that the Democrats are doing this because they want to take him out of contention in the race. But then his attorney went on TV and said, well, the Democrats do this is actually really going to help him in the race. So they can't seem to get their story straight on this one. And once again, I believe Donald Trump is running an actual campaign and does want to get vengeance and wants the power of the presidency so he could gut the deep state, as he calls it, and that he could put in his fascist people into positions of power. I believe that is what he wants to do. But I also believe that the single reason why he declared his candidacy so early is exactly so he can make these arguments. But as the district attorney in Manhattan proved today, he could post on his failing social media app that's under criminal investigations all he wants. But at the end of the day, his words truly don't mean anything as far as preventing him from getting the justice that he deserves in all of
I like that we don't say the name in the social media app, but I've renamed it in my head. I forgot to tell you guys. Pab is just the new name of his social media site. So that's how Pab Social is
real ones. Real ones know. Real ones. Know.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing, Jody and Brett. I think that Americans really do want a system where you have normal political parties engaged in real discussions. And I frankly think McCarthy holds no real power right now. Let's face it. He may have the title of Speaker of the House, but he's really kind of Donald Trump's lapdog, right? Like he can't do anything without getting Donald Trump's permission. And if he does anything that deviates from it, he has to run to Mar-a-Lago and he has to get talked down to by Donald Trump. And, you know, when Donald Trump acts mean to him, you know, he has to then change, you know, his behavior because he's an utter complete coward. You know, Ron DeSantis, for all the power that he wanted, right? It's almost like these, you know, kind of when you go back, it's not a tragedy because these people are, you know, don't deserve to be called tragic figures at all because they're fascist maniacs. But, you know, you go back to them and it's like, here are people who were so hungry for power, right? That they gave away their soul. And when they finally got the power that they've always craved, they had to listen to this deranged maniac in Donald Trump tell them what to do. So they never actually had the power that they wanted, that they thought the position was going to give them. You know, and I thought even, for example, when Kevin McCarthy was being held hostage by the even more extreme fascist in the MAGA Republican Party, if he would have arranged a deal and try to come up with kind of centrist Democrats to try to govern from the middle and figure out common sense solutions, even though, frankly, I think the entire Democratic Party at this point, if you look at it and you compare it to Europe or other places, the Democratic Party itself feels like in any other country would be more center or would be viewed as even potentially a center-right party compared to how fascist the MAGA Republicans are. And that's just the reality of the American political system. But I think we could come up with solutions, right? Because I think by and large, most Americans, you know, despite Lauren Boebert wanting to talk about urine and the MAGA Republicans want to talk about Mr. Potato Head and washing machines and gas stoves and just making up weird things about green M&Ms or purple M&Ms or Dr. Seuss or woke or bathrooms or yelling at pronouns. Like most Americans look at school shootings happening every day and then see when MAGA Republicans wear AR-15 pins, like what are you doing? Like, can't we have common sense gun reform here? Like, can't we have a normal conversation and be like, okay, in the United States military, for the military version of that same weapon, of the AR-15, you have to pass tests and you have to qualify for it and you have to be trained. But when it comes to civilians, you don't have to follow those basic regulations. And then you go to the Constitution and it says well regulated, and we're supposed to ignore that. I think most Americans are like, what are you talking about? And by the way, it's borne out by the data. Like 70%, 75% of Americans want common sense gun reform. So it's not a both sides issue. I think by and large, Americans want to focus on issues like jobs and working conditions and improving people's wages, right? Like, focusing on those issues and focusing on making healthcare affordable and accessible. I mean, with all of this Trump news, right, there was a, Republican right-wing judge earlier in the day who basically completely gutted Obamacare. Each and every day, the MAGA Republicans, the same way they filed lawsuits to block the student debt relief from Biden, they're filing lawsuits each and every day to try to forum shop and get the right judge to judge shop to gut the Affordable Care Act, to gut Obamacare, to take away your health care, and frankly, to take away the health care of their followers. And that's why they distract with Mr. Potato Head and stoves and all this bullshit, because they're doing really evil things every single day. You want to talk about wages? I mean, Democrats are fighting for it to get people like wages with dignity, so they don't have to work multiple jobs, but that people can afford a house. MAGA Republicans, not only minimum wage, but like the most minimum wage. And let's get child labor back. I'm not making that up. That's like the law they passed in Arkansas. Like, let's let child labor happen again. That's the legislation that they're pioneering. And, Democrats are fighting for equality. Oh, the concept that human beings should be treated equally. And MAGA Republicans, woke. Okay, what does woke mean? Woke means like woke. It's too hard for me to describe. Like, that's moronic. That's completely and utterly moronic. Like, Democrats are fighting so that women can control their own bodies. And people like Jim freaking Jordan and disgusting Matt Gaetz and their whole entire filthy ilk are sending the government to criminalize a woman's right to control their body. You sick, what disgusting people are these people? And so it's not a both sides issue, right? Like, this isn't, everyone's getting just so extreme right now. No, not everyone's getting so extreme. I think the common sense principles that I just discussed with you should be pretty objectively embraced, right? Jobs, infrastructure, healthcare, education, a woman's right to control her body, common sense gun reform, education, right? I mean, pretty common sense stuff on every issue. The MAGA Republicans take the most insane side of the issue. Global pandemic, they're basically for the pandemic. And if they could be xenophobic about it, they'll combine kind of supporting pandemic conspiracies and being xenophobic at the same time. Terrorists, January 6th insurrectionists, for MAGA Republicans, let's create a song with them. Let's congressional delegation to freaking sing a song with them. Are you? And I'm supposed to be like, me criticizing that is political?
Ben woke.
You're such a leftist that you would look at that and go.
And Ben, that's why I think it was so important too that we played that Marjorie Taylor Greene fact check earlier and went over that 1990 bill that made gun-free school zones, in which it passed the Senate by a voice vote. They no one objected. They didn't even have to vote on it. It passed by a voice vote. And then in the House, it passed 313 to 1. Only one Republican voted against gun-free school zones. You put that same bill up today, and you would have it get filibustered. You would have Republicans vote it down. You would have the entire House GOP vote against it.
Yep.
And we've seen this countless times. We've played the clips on the show before where you look at the old Republican debates. And I don't have the clip handy right now, but we played it in past episodes. We'll have to pull it up on the next show. And make sure you subscribe to the MeidasTouch Podcast here and on audio, by the way, so that you don't miss a beat. But what we got with that is, in those debates, you had each candidate, Republican candidate for president, whether it was Ronald Reagan or George H.W. Bush, they were debating the most compassionate way to fix our immigration system. They were speaking about immigration with compassion. Even George W. Bush, and don't get it twisted and say, oh, I'd stop defending Bush. I'm not. But even George W. Bush ran his campaign on what he called compassionate conservatism. Those days are gone. This party is not even a shell of its former self. This party bears no resemblance to that party, and that party had plenty of problems. But this party is not even a political party at this point. This party has become a complete and utter fascist cult that has zero ideology, except, like what Ben said, they pick the dumbest, most extreme position on every single issue, no matter what it is. Pandemics, for them. Guns, arm the kids, arm the teachers. It's like you can't even parody these people. They're that far out there. And this is what they're dealing with. And when you ask them and really try to hunker down on what is their ideology is to put their hands on their heart and pledge allegiance to Donald Trump and the January 6th terrorists. Yep. Whatever they want, I'll do. Whatever Donald Trump wants, I'll do. And on the Democratic side, on the pro-democracy side, and the reason that we support these values is because we allow for conversation. We allow for debate. But at our core, we understand the values of America. We understand that we actually want to make people's lives better, that we actually want people to have health care. How about that? Is that crazy? We want kids to be able to go to school and not have to worry about being shot. Is that crazy? Little kids should not go to school worrying about being shot. That shouldn't be a controversial thing. It should be arm the kids. Let me wear my AR-15 pin into Congress. Yes, Congress people did that the day after the shooting. Republican Congress people. It's disgusting. That's not what America is about. But I think I want to end this episode on a high note, though, and let's all just take a moment to embrace this moment in history. Let's just take a moment, take a deep breath, and think about how far we've come. I know so many people thought that we would never see this day. And this is certainly not the end. And I don't want you to think that Alvin Bragg is your savior or Jack Smith is your savior or anything like that. But you have to understand how far we've come, and we should all be able to take this moment right now and be proud of it, to be proud of being on the side of democracy, to be proud of being on the side of justice and the United States of America. This is what true patriotism looks like, people. It's you. It's you. It's the Midas Mighty. And so I want to thank you all for being here every single day. What did you just catch, Ben?
I was just laughing because Michael Cohen posted the Mar-a-Lardo shirt at store.MeidasTouch.com.
That's so funny.
That's the official podcast, Mar-a-Lardo Correctional Facility. And he posted it. There's nothing else there. But if you go to store.MeidasTouch.com, we've got the Mar-a-Lardo shirt. We've got the Convict 45 or Convict 45 shirt.
Oh,
the
indictment season collection.
Oh, Brett, when did you make this graph? You're salty, man.
I've been making it while you were ranting. I was cooking up the graphic.
All right, so we've got the indictment season shirt. We've got the Convict or Convict 40. All these are relevant. Convict or Convict 45. We've got the Make Attorneys Get Attorneys hat. We've got the MAGA Tears mug. We got the unapologetically pro-democracy Jim water bottle. And we've got a lot of, if you go to store.MeidasTouch.com, gear up. We've got the best pro-democracy gear there. That's store.MeidasTouch.com. If you can go to do this helps a lot. First, subscribe to our audio podcast. So please, at the end of this, it's really easy to do. You just search where you listen to podcasts, right? So after this ends, search MeidasTouch Podcast and click subscribe, and leave a 5-star review is great, but that helps with the algorithm of these podcasts that you subscribe to both the audio as well as the YouTube. So for our audio listeners, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube as well, and check out the Legal AF podcast, Political Beatdown podcast, Lights On podcast, Burn the Boats podcast, Majority 54 podcast, the Politics Girl podcast, the whole series of MeidasTouch podcasts. Check those.
The weekend show.
I thought I said the weekend show. Did I not say the weekend show?
Just making sure. Just making
sure.
The
weekend.
The network is growing so fast now that we're gonna need to get you a whole list, Ben.
And let me just say the easiest way to figure it out, so you don't have to remember all of those names. Just check the description. It's all in the description right here on YouTube, and it's in the description on, if you're listening to this on the podcast, just hit subscribe. It's free to subscribe to all of it.
And if you can also check us out, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Again, free,
Easy.
free.
Easy.
Okay, now this part is not free though, so don't worry if you can't do it. But the way we fund this network is actually not through outside investors. Probably not the best business model for us to have. But we felt like if we had outside investors, we don't want people telling us, "Here's what you got to do." You know, we're three stubborn brothers when it comes to democracy. So what we did is we created a Patreon account, and that's how we basically fund this operation. So you go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and you spell that MEIDASTOUCH. So patreon.com/MeidasTouch, and you join one of the memberships there. I think one membership's like $5 a month. There's another that's $10. I think there's one that's $25, and there's even an honorary producer one, which I think is about $100 a month. And we know that's expensive, so no worries if you can't do it. Please do not. You don't have, when people say, "Hey, you know, I spent this money, I don't have a lot of," don't worry about it. Please don't. But if you can, it goes a long way to help the network by going to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. And here's the honorary producers from this show. Your name appears at the end of the show as an honorary producer if you join that tier.
Producer love. I love this.
On these historic podcast. And, you know, one of the ways you can help no matter what is just by sharing these videos. That's probably the best way that you can help. You know, if you recommend MeidasTouch to just one friend or coworker or colleague or neighbor or family member or just anybody that you know, that's hugely helpful to us. And, you know, you want to do more than one person, 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. You want to post about us on Facebook, on whatever social media platform you use, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever platform, Instagram, whatever platform you use. You know, send emails to people you know about this, because it is important that we get out the truth. And what the studies show is that really the best way to do that is when people hear from people that they trust. And so if you're able to just share this network with others, that goes a long way. And finally, on this historic day where a Manhattan district attorney has voted to indict Donald Trump, the first time this has happened, where a president has been, former president, disgraceful president, whatever you want to call him, but certainly not the current president, a freaking traitor, has been criminally indicted. On this historic broadcast, I really want to thank you, the Meidas Mighty. You are our motivation. You are what really, really inspires us each and every day. This is not just some sterile network. That's what sets us apart. I think, frankly, that's why more people watched us on YouTube over the past 3.5 hours than any of the large media networks. I mean, think about that. More people are watching this than are watching Fox. More people are watching this than are watching CNN. More people are watching this than MSNBC. More people come here, but because I think that really the secret sauce is that this is a movement of people who love our democracy, and it's a movement led by you. And we are just honored to be a part of this with you. We thank you. We love you. We appreciate you so, so much. Seriously, thank you for everything. Jordy, take it away.
Shout out to the Meidas Mighty! Lock him up! Indictment season is upon us. Celebrate with the new Indictment season t-shirt and v-neck exclusively at store.MeidasTouch.com.